Hey guys, you are watching your anime world. How are you all? Please support to subscribe this channel for watching new interesting stories. So in this video, we will see second part, what if Deku was born with Kaido's powers. Here is short summary. Born with a powerful quirk and an even more powerful body, Izuku is fueled by the desire to change the world where the corruption of heroes and the war against villains don't exist, and instead replace it with a society where only the strong rule. As the war between UA and the Love starts, a third player enters the game. But before we start, if you want more stuff like this, then be sure to subscribe and like this video. And if possible, share this video with your friends. Now let's start the story. This bed is huge, Himiko commented in awe as she entered the boys' room, and quickly ran up to it. Before her partner could protest, the girl jumped on the bed, sprawling all over it to compare it to her size. Izuku just sat at his desk after throwing his backpack away. "Your mom's nice. You're lucky," she mumbled, turning to look at him. "Yeah," he responded dismissively, earning an inquisitive look from Himiko. Before she could open her mouth, he added, "And before you ask, the father's out of the picture." "Oh," the blonde uttered. She was about to say she was sorry, but considering the disdain in Izuku's voice once he mentioned his father, he likely wasn't sad that his sperm donor was gone. "Does your mom know about what you do? It's something hard to hide, isn't it?" she asked. The girl was speaking from experience since she had to flee from home the moment she did something illegal. Her parents already knew she was a murderer and saw her as nothing but a monster. Maybe," Izuku shrugged, not worried about it at all. "She never asks me questions about my activities, and I know she's smart enough to know I'm not doing anything lawful. Especially when I bring her bags of money. She either doesn't care or doesn't want to know," he explained nonchalantly. Meanwhile, Himiko was simply baffled by his statement. She didn't know a lot about villains and such, but she was sure most of them would be disowned or ratted out by their families. The fact that his mother wasn't saying anything meant, at the very least, that she indirectly approved of what he was doing. Nevertheless, it was strange. Why would she behave like that? Even if they approved, people wouldn't just pretend that nothing was happening, would they? Ultimately, Toga had no knowledge of psychology, so she couldn't conclude anything. "She sounds great," she expressed. She was also curious about the woman's leg injury, but she figured that was something she could ask about at a later time. "Anyway, I'm still not going to talk about any of my plans in front of her, which is why I wanted us to get in my room first," Izuku explained as Himiko finally sat up, at the edge of his bed. "I was wondering about that. Why does it start in 9 months? She inquired, tilting her head inquisitively. "It's not that it starts in 9 months. It gets harder in 9 months, that's the difference. But we're not there yet," Izuku replied. He didn't wish to talk about his plans out of order. "I've been doing some dirty work for some time, but you could say I'm seriously only starting now. Recruiting people is our top priority for now. Either people we can fully trust, the ones who will be in our inner circle, or expendable lackeys." "That's why you told Jiren to find some villains," Himiko deduced, to which the boy nodded. "Yeah, I needed his help to find guys who would serve as my officers. For now, you're the only one," he responded in affirmation. "That also means I'm your first one." "I'm honored," Himiko celebrated with a toothy grin. "Don't be too presumptuous, though. You'll be useful for stealthy work, but I need people who'll be the big guns. Guys who can dish out a lot of pain," he cut her off, making the girl pout in denial. "I can dish out pain, too," she mumbled with her arms crossed. "I've been having a hard time finding them with Jiren's help, so I may have to do it myself. Anyways, as you probably guessed, we need a group. You won't accomplish anything as a villain if you don't have expendable guns under you or a good income. I require both," the horned boy explained while the blonde nodded along. "You have an idea how to get these?" she asked, leaning her chin on her hands. Izuku smirked at the question. "The easiest way is to take over an existing group. They'll already have a zone they settled in. And if we choose well, they could even already have a source of income we could improve upon," he explained confidently. "But won't these guys betray you? I doubt they'll be happy if you replace their boss," Toga inquired with furrowed brows. You remember when I told you all humans wanted to be free? He questioned. The blonde simply nodded in response, confused. Society and its laws aren't the only things that repress their freedom. Fear does it, too. Don't worry about me. I'll make sure the fear they'll have of me will be engraved in their bodies. They won't betray me, he scoffed in amusement. Humans were still animals. At the end of the day, fear would keep them in line. It would control them. I'm not following you out of fear though, Himiko grinned proudly. I do it 'cause I like you. And I don't intend to use fear for my top officers. These ones would be people I need to trust fully. It would also be disappointing if there's no one capable of holding a conversation with me without shitting their pants, he retorted. Of course, it was much better if his strongest followers were working for him because they respected him, or liked him in Himiko's case. Since I need to be careful about my chosen group, I asked Jiren for help. I don't want to stupidly start a war over territories by accident, and attract unwanted attention. You rely a lot on Jiren. That old guy must have a ton of contacts, Himiko commented. She was impressed he even thought about those things. He wasn't like her, whose plan was just to kill aimlessly. However, she had a feeling planning like this was recurring in the underground world. I do, and the faster I can get that group, the faster I can stop relying on him. I don't trust him, Izuku revealed with a frown. But why? The blonde girl arched an eyebrow in surprise. Call it instincts. Mostly, it's because that guy does have a lot of contacts. Too many, even. I wouldn't be surprised if he has more loyalty to certain groups or individuals. There's a possibility he could betray me for the right price, he explained his suspicions, rubbing his chin in a thinking manner. He wasn't stupid enough to blindly trust Jiren. Even if he had no evidence of his worries, he still knew the rule of no honor among thieves. If the old man was offered a sweet enough deal, he would throw Izuku under the bus. Wow, I thought you would only have muscles for brains, but you're actually really smart, Izu-kun. Himiko exclaimed in awe. What is that supposed to mean? And didn't I tell you not to call me that? Izuku barked at her, annoyed that she still didn't drop that nickname. I think it's cute. Plus, your mom liked it. Himiko snickered fearlessly. For fuck's sake, the horned boy held the bridge of his nose with his eyes closed. What did he do to deserve this? No, he could only blame himself since he was the one who recruited her in the first place. He needed to remind himself that she possessed good qualities and had some potential. It also didn't help that his dragon quirk screwed with his hormones at the worst times, too. Moving on. I heard there are a lot of gangs here in Musudafu, so it's possible that whenever we get a group, we'll have to expand to the rest of Shizuoka at the start. Then, when we have enough resources, we can comfortably take under our control more zones in Musudafu. This is what I mainly plan on doing for the next 9 months, he explained, making the blonde cock an eyebrow. Those 9 months again. What's in 9 months? Himiko questioned, starting to get really curious now. The UA entrance exam, Izuku revealed, much to the blonde's surprise. What about it? She inquired, curious. She had no idea why a villain would plan anything around UA's entrance exam. Isn't that obvious? I'm going to sign up. I plan on taking the exam and entering UA, he bluntly disclosed. What? Himiko gasped in shock. Of all the things he could have said, this was the last thing she expected to hear. I thought you wouldn't want to be a hero after everything you said. She exclaimed, unsure of how to feel about this. Becoming a hero isn't really the end goal. Although it would help a lot if I were, since I could mess things up from the inside, he replied. But my main objective there would be recruiting, he revealed. Recruiting? Himiko voiced in confusion. Who would he recruit and what for? He wasn't seriously considering doing it for their villainous crew, right? Yes. Recruit heroes in training for our cause, obviously. They're bound to be strong and good assets, he explained without a care in the world. He was aware of the difficulty of the task, but he was confident. He also understood human nature well thanks to his family. Moreover, that would mean there would be even more traitors in the heroes' ranks. I don't mean to sound pessimistic, Izu-kun, but how are you going to convince heroes in training to join villains? She also didn't want to sound like she didn't believe in him, but this plan didn't have promising odds. Convince them, the horned boy repeated. After a second, he burst out laughing. Toga flinched in surprise since this action was the least she expected at this point. Don't get too ahead of yourself, likely many of them will just be tools at best. He laughed. If there is anything valuable that my old man taught me, it's that there is a rotten heart inside everyone. Some people just have a different number of protective layers hiding that heart. Once I enter Ua, I will help these heroes in training find the rotten core whose existence even they deny, or I will forcefully shatter these layers one by one until they're broken beyond repair and they have no spirit to fight back, he explained as his father's training sessions flashed before his eyes. Yes, some individuals hid their true nature while others denied they existed in the first place. You could either show them their true colors, or hurt them to the point of breaking. However, there were special cases in this world. Now, if some of them still hold on to their values even after that, they'll remain our enemies. Himiko stayed silent for several seconds, taking in his words. She understood what he meant. At least, she thought she did. It wasn't complicated, rather, she was familiar with it. Yes, even she could see people's dark hearts. The dark hearts of the ones who hurt and rejected her. They acted as if they were irreproachable while wishing for her to disappear. Even when she had done nothing wrong, they despised her. She wondered what it would be like to show them how rotten they truly were. Would they accept it? Would they hate themselves like they hated her? How funny. Make them bad guys. She hummed in amusement. Izuku gazed at her, waiting to see if she would continue. That reminds me of a manga. There was this guy, on the outside, he was totally normal, he was what society considered the norm, anyway. He acted sweet around everyone and was pretty popular. But then, in the second chapter, you learn he's all twisted and crazy. He likes toying with people, stealing, and killing all the prostitutes he had fun with. Yep, his sweet demeanor is all an act 'cause he knows he'll be in trouble if he shows his real face to normal people, she recounted while the horned boy listened in silence, nodding along from time to time. Then one day, he has enough. He's tired of having to act, but he doesn't want to be rejected either. He loves the attention and being liked by everyone. So he gets a great idea. He wants to corrupt everyone he knows. He wanna make them just like him. He wanna make them dark and depraved. It sounded like an awesome idea, she grinned. Did he succeed? The green-haired boy asked. For once, his curiosity was piqued. I don't know. I never read the ending. It was cancelled after 10 chapters, Himiko responded in disappointment. Izu-kun, I want to help. I want to do it. I want to make everyone else just as crazy and rotten as we are. She grinned wide, showing nearly all her teeth. Her blood rose to her cheeks as she imagined their perfect little world. In response, the boy lightly snickered, undeterred by her bloodlusted eyes. In fact, instead of being disgusted or freaked out by them, he was amused. She was showing her true self, and he enjoyed it. It mostly made his heart beat with trepidation, it made his own bloodlust rise. Among other things, he wanted to fight. I feel like we'll have a good partnership, Izuku sniggered, giving the girl a determined look. This is going to be so much fun. The blonde exclaimed before jumping to her feet. She ran up to the massive boy and grabbed his shirt. Please, let me have your blood, Izu-kun. Huh, what the hell are you saying, now? He asked, taken back by her sudden request. I crave blood even more if it comes from the people I like, so please give some to me. She pleaded before taking out her knife. Izuku simply huffed in boredom and grabbed by the ankle. Ah, she yelped as she was lifted off the floor and held upside down. She quickly used her free hand to grab her skirt and hide her panties with it. Hey, I can't stab you like this, Izu-kun. She complained while trying to slash the boy. This is going to be troublesome, you know that, right? The horned boy asked, only to be ignored. Instead, the girl insisted on behaving like she was throwing a tantrum. He needed to decide on how to take care of this, so it wouldn't impede on any of their operations. His eyes scanned her body, traveling all over it until he finally came to a conclusion. Let's make a deal, then. Since you want my blood so bad, I'll let you stab or slash me once a day. If your knife can get through my skin and make me bleed, you can have my blood. Really? Himiko beamed. Yeah, you have my word. However, for every failed attempt, I get to do something to you in return, he responded, earning a curious glance from the blonde. What would that be? She asked, suspicious. Whatever it was, she wouldn't mind if she got his blood, anyway. You'll see once you try to take my blood, he shrugged dismissively. All right, I accept. She giggled before getting ready to try and stab his hand. Izuku, can you come here for a second? I can't open this jar. Inko suddenly called her son from the living room, stopping Himiko mid-motion. We'll continue this later, he stated as he dropped her on the floor. The blonde yelped in pain and dropped her knife once her head met the floor. You could have been more gentle, you know, she said, still lying on the floor. With a grunt, she stood up and picked up her knife to hide it in the seifuku under her cardigan. She was satisfied with the deal he offered. Not only would she get to make everyone as crazy as she was, but she would also get to taste the boy's blood. She was already imagining how good it must have been. Probably exquisite coming from someone so rotten and strong. She thought about his plans again. Obviously, his end goal was to take over Japan, which was quite ambitious for any villain to accomplish. However, she could see it happening with a large army of villains and heroes alike. Especially if their enemy's camp was filled with traitors. They were going to have so much fun. She truly chose the right person to follow. If only her parents knew, they would surely regret treating her the way they did. She was going to be richer and stronger than they ever could have been. Nevertheless, she shouldn't get too ahead of herself either since this was only the beginning. They didn't even have a group yet. Soon after their little discussion about their plans, Inko called them over for dinner. Himiko was aware that the older woman was preparing katsudon. What she didn't expect was the sheer size of it. Sure, she and Inko had a normal portion. Izuku on the other hand. His bowl had twice as much rice, at least, and a whole chicken. She didn't know what she expected given his massive size, but it still surprised her. This tastes great, Inko. Himiko commented, still glancing at Izuku from the corner of her eyes. The boy was even spitting out pieces of chicken bones occasionally after accidentally biting some. Thank you. I'm happy I get to cook for someone other than myself and Izuku for once, the green-haired woman chortled. I've been wondering, for how long have you two known each other? She asked with curiosity. A few weeks, Izuku swiftly responded before Himiko could even open her mouth. Oh, really? And you're already bringing her to meet your mother? She chuckled in amusement, also earning a giggle from the girl who was more than happy to see someone tease him. I'm guessing you are from another school. I'm going to Nabu Middle School. She replied quite confidently given it was a lie. Well, not exactly. It was the school she went to before running from home. And it was last year, so even if she continued going there, she would have been in high school by now. That's pretty far from Aldera, Inko commented. Yet, she didn't ask how they met. From what you said, it sounds like Izuku doesn't have a lot of friends, the blonde pointed out. Izuku grunted but remained quiet. Yes, he prefers staying on his own, which is a shame, Inko responded before turning to her son. You aren't even hanging out with Katsuki-kun anymore, even though he's your childhood friend, she told him with a hint of sadness in her tone. We just aren't meant to be buddies, that's all, the horned boy sighed in annoyance. Why are you even mentioning him now of all times? Did you go to Mitsuki's again? Well, of course, Inko replied with furrowed brows. Mitsuki was her only friend, so it wasn't really surprising that his mother regularly visited her. If you really want to see her so badly, can't you call her over instead? You shouldn't be walking around so much with that leg, he pointed at her prosthetic leg. Her house is just more welcoming than ours, Inko crossed her arms. Translation. There was a risk of Mitsuki stumbling on the unrealistic stash of money Izuku was hiding inside the house. They didn't have a lot of income, so having too much money would be suspicious. We were talking about you and Katsuki-kun, and how you were as children. She was really saddened that you two drifted apart, she explained while Toga listened intently. She was overjoyed to learn more about Izuku's childhood. Mitsuki doesn't look like it, but she really cares for her son, you know. She would do anything if it was for his well-being. Understandably, she would be worried Katsuki doesn't have many friends, she added. Believe me, he isn't bothered by it, Izuku scoffed dismissively. Inko sighed. Just remember what I said, she softly reminded him, then looked at Himiko again. Do you have any plans for the future? What school do you want to go to next? She asked, cheerier. I'm not sure yet, Himiko shrugged. She didn't even know what lie to come up with since she didn't feel like sticking with it later on. Izuku wants to become a pro hero. I'm sure he must have told you, but he wants to enter UA, the mother stated with a neutral expression. Yeah, he told me. He'll be an amazing hero. Toga exclaimed cheerfully while Inko's expression remained unchanged. I don't doubt he'll be quite unique, she simply said quietly. Meanwhile, Izuku continued chewing on his meal, largely ignoring their idle chatter. He only interjected once or twice, not fully engaging in the conversation. His mind was preoccupied with other matters, particularly his preparations for UA. Although he had 9 months ahead of him, he was determined not to squander any time. Once he had his own group, he could start earning money and building influence without needing to skip school anymore. With a determined look, he took another bite of the chicken in his katsudon, only to wince as a bone piece was lodged between his teeth again. Why were bones so freaking brittle? After weeks had passed since he recruited Himiko among his ranks, Jiren finally gave him some juicy information. Something useful. If what they planned succeeded, then he could stop selling his analysis, and maybe even cut ties with the old man. After all, he had outgrown his usefulness by providing him what he had been looking for all this time. No, it wasn't a new member, unfortunately, but it was a gang he could subjugate. Izuku and Himiko were currently at the very edge of Musudafu, roughly 20 minutes from his home by metro, and an hour by car. They were in a Chinatown. Obviously, Shizuoka's Chinatown wasn't as large and as frequented as Yokohama's, but it was still there. It was late in the evening, so there were quite a few people outside. He would have worn a mask, but it was useless given his size and his horns. It wasn't important, anyway. If everything went right, there would be no commotion at all outside. At least, nothing that would suspect him in any way. The gang he was interested in was called the Wild Dogs, and from what Jiren told him, they owned a strip club. Strip clubs weren't banned in Japan, but they had a lot of regulations that would hinder an establishment. Moreover, this gang also sold multiple drugs there. That was why it was kept a secret. According to Jiren, it was a normal-looking restaurant. People would come in and go without hearing or seeing anything suspicious. However, there was a back door that led to an underground club. With the right password, the waiter would lead them to that door. Jiren gave him their location because they didn't respect the end of one of their deals in the past. These guys weren't a huge gang, but they still made some profit. They were the perfect start for him. They're closed, Himiko bluntly stated to an Izuku who was sitting on a wooden box against a wall. Huh, what do you mean they're closed? They should be open, he replied in confusion. Because of their underground activities, even their restaurant needed to remain open until later hours than the others. I know, but the sign says they're closed. The door's locked, too. And I can't see anything inside because of the curtains, Himiko retorted with her hands raised. You don't need to shout at me, you know, she pouted before holding her hands behind her back. Doesn't matter, I know one person's in there, Izuku noted before standing up. Thanks to his quirks, his senses were enhanced. His hearing, sight, and smell were several times stronger than the average person's. Do you know that because of your quirk? When are you going to show it to me? The blonde asked impatiently. I'll show it when I need to use it against someone, he replied in dismissal. But that's unfair. I'm teaching you my stealth technique, so you could at least show me your quirk. She complained as the boy suddenly picked her up by the back of her collar like a cat and transported her in front of the door. We're going in, so watch if anyone's looking our way, he instructed while telling her to look out for any curious passerby. Ya got it, Ryu-kun, she replied while blushing in embarrassment at having been held this way. Because of their circumstances, they used codenames in public to avoid revealing anything. Obviously, he also needed to think of a villain's name. Just like pro-heroes, villains also needed names to be recognized, but he hadn't thought of one. Now standing in front of the entrance door, Izuku leaned down and breathed out a small flame over the lock. Applying the fire for a few seconds was enough to turn the lock and the knob into molten metal. There, it's open, he stated before pushing the door open with a finger. He also made sure not to cause a fire to spread since he didn't wish to lose this building before even taking over it. "You're sneakier than you look," Himiko commented in amusement as they entered the restaurant. The interior was nothing special. For any average person, they would see nothing but a regular restaurant. At first glance, there was nothing suspicious going on. However, Izuku knew better. From behind the bar counter, a man was bent over it, seemingly playing on his phone. Naturally, the moment the two of them came in, the bartender hurriedly raised his head. "The restaurant's closed, so piss off," he ordered. It seemed he hadn't realized they had come in even though the door was originally locked. "I'm here to see your boss," Izuku stated, ignoring the man's order. The bartender raised an eyebrow. "The boss of the Wild Dogs," he clarified, making the Wild Dogs members' eyes widen. "I don't know who you are, buddy, but I've never seen you here. Everything here is closed, so if you want to see my manager, you'll have to come back," he snarled, walking around the counter to face the massive boy. "Or else," he threatened. Izuku had to admit that he certainly had guts. Most people wouldn't dare talk to him this way since he was 3 times their size. "I'm not wasting time here with you," Izuku rolled his shoulders in boredom. "Ace, make him talk," he ordered. The bartender froze as something hard and cold was pressed against his throat. He quickly recognized it as a knife. His eyes darted to his left to see who had snuck up on him. It was a blonde girl who had climbed onto his back, wrapping her legs around his waist. She held his head with her left hand while the other hand threatened his throat with the blade. He gulped in fear while drops of sweat rolled down his cheeks. "Now, I'll say it again. Take me to your boss," Izuku repeated in a low tone. They were screwed. Everything, absolutely everything was going well until now. He had fulfilled one of his lifelong goals of having a strip club. He had female workers, guards, and loyal enough men. He was even about to start drug dealing. All in all, he had success. It could have continued this way until all of the underworld of Musudafu knew about his business and enjoyed it. Unfortunately, they found him again and were ruining everything. Instead of fighting him head-on in a bloody war, they were sinking his business. He knew for a fact that they were actively ruining the reputation of his establishment. He had fewer and fewer customers for his strip club. His restaurant wasn't affected, but that was only a front, so the little income he received was mostly worthless compared to what he earned before. That was the reason he closed the restaurant and strip club today. He needed to think and plan for what he should do to solve this problem. He was surrounded by dozens of his men, all sitting at the tables usually reserved for the customers. Most of them dressed like ruffians, and only a few bothered wearing suits since they didn't care about their appearances. They didn't think it mattered when it came to guarding this place or working here. They weren't the ones dancing on the poles, after all. Nonetheless, even if he had quite a few men, there still wasn't enough of them to fill the whole room. Indeed, the underground strip club's main room was spacious enough to host around 200 patrons. The biggest strip clubs in other countries could easily host more than 1,000, but this wasn't too bad for one located in Japan. He had also hoped to expand it one day. The bar was stocked with an array of drinks and cocktails, while dancing poles were strategically placed around the room, near the tables where patrons would gather. Normally, dim, colorful lights would flash, but with the establishment closed, only a regular light illuminated the space. He even set up a special stage where his most popular dancers would perform. They were now as empty as the rest. It was a pathetic sight. Seeing one of his dreams crumbling under his eyes filled him with rage. Oh, right, who was he? It was simple. He was the man sitting on the stairs leading to the private rooms. However, he was not like the others. Firstly, he towered over them, easily taller than the average man. However, his most recognizable feature wasn't his size, but rather the rest of his appearance. He looked like the crossbreed of a human and a bull. His legs were hooves, and he possessed bulging muscles and a bull head with large horns protruding from it. On his nose, he wore a golden nose ring. While his skin was tanned, his back, legs, and topless upper chest were covered in black fur. His brown eyes filled with fury, mixed with his size and overall appearance, would intimidate nearly anyone. Even some of his men sweat nervously as if they could feel his anger emanating from him. Despite that, two lightly dressed women, only wearing bikinis, lay in his lap without fear. He was the leader of the wild dogs, Zhang Lu. He breathed through his nose as he clenched his fists. This joke lasted long enough. Those bastards screwed us over for the last time. Since they want a fight so bad, we'll give it to them, Zhang Lu declared confidently. What should we do, boss? One of the closest men asked, as pumped as his leader. First, recruit some guys, as many as possible. We need some cannon fodders, tell them there'll be good pay. Screw handguns, contact everyone we know, and let's get some serious firepower. Once we're ready, we'll leave Musudafu, head over to their turf, and bring war with us, he explained. His plan was basically to run head first into them and blindly attack. He would lose a lot of men, either killed or arrested by pro-heroes. That was why he would cannon fodder, that way he could sacrifice them instead of his own gang members. One man yelled, pumping up a fist. They'll see what we're made of. Another one declared. Boss. The bullhead picked up a frail and nervous mutter. Quickly, he turned to the entrance door, noticing only now that it was open. The guard he posted on the upper floor was here, shaking like a leaf. What is it? Lu inquired with an annoyed tone, silencing the whole room. Someone is here to see you, the henchman nervously responded. Didn't I say I don't want to be disturbed? Tell them to fuck off, Lu grumbled, waving his hand in dismissal. I didn't really have a choice, boss, the other man replied. Suddenly, he was propelled across the room as if he were hit by a car and crashed into one of the nearby tables. This is getting too long, the person who shoved him muttered before coming in, leaning down so their head wouldn't hit the top of the doorframe. The wild dog's leader narrowed his eyes as a giant of a man entered the room. Just like him, this one had horns, too. A mutant type, without a doubt. That's the first time I have to look up at someone, he mumbled under his breath. Even if he was sitting, he could tell the green-haired man was a good head taller than him. Gee, that guy is huge, a nearby gangster exclaimed while looking up. Of course, he was huge. He was Izuku Midoriya, and thanks to his quirk he hardly felt intimidated by anyone, even when meeting someone close to his size and height. Himiko Toga, or rather Ace, was hiding in his shadow, ready to pounce if needed. He kept her hidden in case he wanted her to go for a surprise attack. He must be 3 meters tall. Another one added, taking a step back. More like 287, but who was counting anymore? Well, the horned boy had to, since he often bumped his head on ceilings. You're Zhang Lu, right? Izuku questioned, though he already knew the answer. You know me, but I've never seen your ugly mug. Who the hell are you? Lu glared at the intruder, who not only dared to attack his base but also disrespected him. You can call me Ryu, Izuku responded. I'm here for a specific reason, but I'd rather avoid dirtying and trashing this place, so let's do it the easy way. I want to take control of this business. I'll be your new boss from now on, he boldly announced, much to everyone's astonishment. The area was stunned into silence, not expecting this in the least. You could almost hear a pin drop. Finally, after a few seconds, a tiny snicker escaped Lu's mouth, which grew louder and louder until it turned into full-blown laughter. It didn't even take a second before his men joined it, mocking the horned new arrival. You're crazy, I'll give you that. What a joke. Lu belly laughed while holding his 2 dancers, who only giggled among themselves. That punk has no idea who we are. Teach him a lesson, guys, he ordered. They shouted in unison as they jumped off their chairs. Knew it wouldn't be that easy, Izuku muttered before pulling his right arm back. Out of my way, small fries. He shouted as he kept his arm outstretched and bent before swinging it forward like a scythe. Surprised at his quick moves, the men he targeted had no time to dodge as his arm closed it on them. Dragon Scythe, he shouted as he made contact with them. Due to his long and wide arms, at least 5 of the gangsters found themselves struck by his forearm. The moment his limb collided with these fodders, he put in even more strength and sent them flying, along with parts of the bar on his right. The wind produced from the blow alone was also enough to blow many of the bottles. As for the men that were hit, their bodies flew across the room, either slamming into a wall, tables, or even their teammates. None of them came out unscathed. One's jaw had been blown off his, and another had the left side of his head bashed in, which most likely got his brain smushed by the skull. Someone else's face had been flattened as if it had been ran over by a truck. Even if some of them survived the initial blow, they were doomed by their injuries. Those 3 were only the worst cases as the rest were just as bloodied. If he had used all his power, they likely would have been torn apart. However, Izuku didn't want to show his whole hand yet. He needed to see if that was enough to make them understand he wasn't to be messed with. Anyone would realize that fighting someone who could break all your bones in only one hit would be stupid. As expected, many of them swiftly recoiled at that display. Fuck. What the hell was that? One of the gangsters shouted as he fell on his butt. One of his buddies had flown right where he was. Even if he was used to gruesome sights, he rarely had to witness someone dying with a single hit from a forearm. The comrade that landed near him had his neck fully twisted and the head open. He might be as strong as the boss. Another one added, flabbergasted. That one comment made Izuku perk up with interest. While what he did was pretty good, he knew that many other people in the world could do the same. Many had mutant or strength-based quirks, after all. However, he didn't expect he could potentially fight someone on his level. You'll pay for that, a wild dog member screamed, running toward Izuku at full speed. The man joined his hands together as a sword came out of them. Gripping the handle tightly, he jumped and delivered a vertical slash at the horned man's chest. Himiko, who remained near the door, smirked, already knowing the outcome. Shling. The gangster widened his eyes as his blade broke in half. What? He uttered while staring at his broken blade. Looking up, he froze once he noticed he left no scratch on the other man's body. Are you going to fight yourself or not? Izuku questioned Lu before grabbing the gangster who attacked him's head. He ignored the man attempting to claw his way out and casually crushed his skull in his palm like a grape before letting the body drop. If you're as strong as I am, then it'll be interesting. Zhang Lu's eyes wandered around, taking in his men's emotions. They were still ready to fight even if they were slightly shaken up. However, he knew that even if they managed to bring the intruder down at some point, they wouldn't do it without spilling gallons of blood. He wasn't willing to lose any more valuable men. Finally, he stood up. Step back, guys. That man may be too much for you to handle. I'll take care of this, he instructed them while cracking his neck. I do have a lot of strength, but don't lump me in the same basket as you. Oh, why? Izuku arched an eyebrow. I'm not just a stupid brute. I actually used my strength to help me master martial arts and deal deadly blows with ease, he revealed as he took a combat stance, slightly bending his knees and arms, and raising a hand above the other, pulling it back near his head. A Chinese martial art that tears the flesh right off my enemies, the Hikisaku Ken, he explained pridefully. Now this is getting interesting, Izuku grinned, feeling his heart pumping. All right, show me what you can do, he declared excitedly. Tisk, guess you won't understand how dangerous I am until I show you, Lu scoffed. Suddenly, he charged forward, making the floor shake with his powerful hooves. Here, take this, Sora o Waru Ken, he announced as he raised his hand and quickly brought it down toward the horned boy. Izuku narrowed his eyes as he realized Lu was using a chop attack, which was the first time anyone tried to hit him in such a way. Not taking any risks, he didn't let himself get hit like he usually would when playing around with an opponent. Before Lu's hand could connect, the green-haired boy grabbed his wrist, stopping his attack midair. Martial arts are worthless if you can't hit me, he smugly remarked, only for Lu to smirk. You sure? He asked, not bothered at all that his wrist had been caught. Suddenly, Izuku's jacket was torn off on his left shoulder as if it had been through a shredder. The boy widened his eyes and grunted, not in pain, but in surprise. Sure, he was still intact, but the fact that his jacket had been partially torn off even though his enemy didn't even make contact with it was not something he expected. You're wide open, Lu shouted with glee, immediately taking advantage of his opponent's surprise. Taki Noboru Ken. The bull man's other hand shot upward vertically in a claw-like position as if trying to scratch Izuku's chest. Fortunately, the dragon boy still didn't let his guard down. With quick reflexes, he leaned back and dodged the man's hit, this time also making sure he was going far enough to avoid getting caught like last time. Of course, he also had to let go of the man's wrist to do that. Not so fast, Niku o Hikisaku Sharin, he announced again as he raised his right leg and pivoted on the other, making a horizontal circular motion in Izuku's direction. The giant of a man stepped aside with incredible speed, dodging the kick. Yet, it was too close to his comfort as he had witnessed what his martial art could do. One unfortunate soul had been standing near Izuku, so once the horned man avoided the blow, they were the ones to take it instead. Blood poured out in the air like a bloody fountain while the curling screams of one of the wild dogs filled the entire room. The man lay on the floor, kicking underneath him as he held his arm in agony. Not only the sleeve where he was hit was gone, but his skin and flesh were too, exposing his bone. Help! Call for help! He begged while tears streamed down his cheeks. Idiots! You know you shouldn't stand close while I'm fighting. Lu admonished the whole group as the two of his men grabbed the injured one and pulled him away from the fight. Still near the door, Himiko licked her lips at the display. Not only did she get to enjoy the nice show Izuku put on with his opening attack, but Zhonglu made a bloody mess, too. Looks yummy, she mumbled to herself, her grin reaching her ears. She couldn't wait to see how the battle would play out. Meanwhile, Izuku stared at Lu's display with a certain admiration. He never knew such a martial art existed before. If it was something not bound by a quirk, then that meant anyone could learn it, didn't it? Hey, how does that martial art work? He boldly inquired. Even if he wasn't one to speak about how he fought and his quirk, he was well aware that this wasn't the case for everyone. Oh, so you're taking me seriously, now. I do have to admit you're quick on your feet for someone your size, Lu snickered arrogantly as he entered his combat stance again. The Hikisaku Ken relies on both strength and speed, which combined with precise and calculated movements can create blows as ravaging as the torrents in a powerful tornado. Each blow acts like a wind that tears you to shreds. The meek average person could never unlock the full potential of that art as they would peel off someone's skin at most, but with my quirk and peak physique, I tear the flesh right off the bones. He proudly explained, smirking as he expected his opponent to be shaking. He focused his stare on Izuku, studying his position. The taller man was looking down, and just as Lu expected it, he was shaking. Yes, it was fear. You understand what you got yourself into, don't you? He chuckled. Izuku clenched his fist as he finally looked up. There was no fear in his eyes. There was joy, in fact. He had been shaking with excitement, looking at Zhonglu with a wide and eager smile. How fascinating. I never knew someone could fight like that. He laughed. Come and show me your moves. I want to learn that style. He admitted. Why you? Lu muttered before clenching his teeth so hard you could hear them grind. Bastard. You still mock me, as if you could learn it so easily. He shouted before charging toward the horned bastard. Of course, not. I'm taking you seriously. Izuku replied excitedly as he readied himself to intercept the enemy. With a newfound speed, his fist shot forward, nearly getting invisible to the small fries watching their fight. Zhonglu widened his eyes in surprise before swiftly raising his arms in a guard. Miraculously, he blocked the fist right in time. Despite that, he was still pushed back. Considering his weight, it was a testament to Izuku's strength that Lu pushed away like this. Not only that, but the pain in his arms wasn't negligible. Thankfully, nothing was broken. Izuku didn't let him rest, and closed in on him, delivering multiple blows. Lu breathed out, not scared in the least of the approaching enemy. He blocked every single blow, either with a well-placed guard or by redirecting Izuku's strength with the help of his martial art, using the man's own strength against him. Nonetheless, the long-haired man was still gaining ground on him, forcing him to step back. He blocked a right, then a left, dodged another right and even blocked Izuku's leg with one of his hooves. Alright, Lu had to admit that this man was strong. If there was any praise he could give him, it would be his power and speed. Each hit would have broken an average man's bones. However, Lu had a much stronger build than the average man, so you would need more than that. He bid his time for a couple of more seconds, there. He countered yet another of Izuku's blows in a way that finally left the horned man completely open. He directed one swift palm thrust toward Izuku's chest. Ten no Tenahira, Lu yelled, only for the green-haired man to manage to push up his hand just before it could hit his chest. However, this time, the blow not only tore off pieces of Izuku's jacket but also shredded off his skin. Midoriya grunted in pain, his shoulder all red from his exposed muscles. Lu slightly narrowed his eyes. It was supposed to deal much more damage, yet it only peeled off the skin. His enemy's body really was unusually strong, yet, it didn't matter. This hit was only a distraction. Shinzo Jokyo Ken. He thrust his right hand forward where Izuku's heart should have been located. Zhang Lu smirked as his hand successfully penetrated the other man's chest, digging into his flesh. Izuku grunted in pain again before spitting out blood as he fell to a knee. With his hand still on the other man's chest, Lu could feel the warm crimson liquid pouring out all over his hand and onto the floor. Izuku, he's bleeding, Himiko shouted in shock, astonished as she witnessed the boy's pain. For the first time since she met him, she saw his blood flow out of his body. Izuku explicitly told her not to act or interfere in his fight if there were any, but this was clearly an emergency, wasn't it? If she stood there, he would probably die. She took out her knife, gritting her teeth with rage. No, even if he didn't want her to interfere, she couldn't let this guy get away with hurting her leader and friend. Right now, she was even ready to ignore Izuku's blood to save him. However, before she could jump into the fight, she stopped, noticing the boy's expression. Tisk! Lu clicked his tongue. Unfortunately, his hand hadn't reached Izuku's heart. No matter, this was still enough to put him down. He paused as a small chuckle reached his ears. Who was laughing now of all times? With a certain apprehension, his eyes focused on the opponent. Ha ha, got you, now. Izuku eagerly laughed, much to Lu's shock. What? He exclaimed, flabbergasted while the horned man suddenly stood up. Your blocking and dodging was getting annoying, Izuku stated as he grabbed Lu's left wrist, squeezing it until his bones cracked. The gangster released a pained grunt before attempting to pull his right hand out of the boy's chest. The instant the dragon boy felt his flesh moving at the attempt, he flexed his muscles, squashing Lu's hand inside. My hand stuck, he shouted, unable to pull it out. You're telling me you let yourself get hit just to land a blow on me? Are you crazy? He asked, baffled. You finally get it, Izuku exclaimed, laughing as he swiftly stood back up. Thundering headbutt. The horned boy pulled his head back before slamming it as hard as he could into Lu's head, making his skull crack so hard that even the gangsters nearby heard it. Zhang Lu dropped to his knees, feeling the impact and pain traveling throughout his whole body. He grunted in pain while something warm dropped down his face, even going into his eyes. He recognized the taste, scent, and most of all the color, red. Blood was spilling out of his forehead like a tiny fountain. Dragon Scythe, Izuku announced his attack and slammed his forearm against the bull's throat, throwing him back as he released both of his hands. Boss! One of the wild dogs shouted as they witnessed their leader being flung back. Pain. That was pretty much all Zhang Lu felt at the moment as he lay on the floor. Ringing in his ears was all he heard, and blood was all he breathed, forcing him to spit it out. With this excruciating pain in the throat, he would have thought his neck was broken, yet it wasn't. He may have slightly underestimated his enemy's strength, he hit like a truck. Maybe even worse. However, he couldn't let himself die here. He refused to lose. Gritting his teeth, Lu managed to stand back up, grunting all the way with shaky legs. "I'm fine," he grumbled to his men while breathing heavily. He needed to finish off that man quickly, or else he wouldn't last too many of his punches. Izuku pulled his arm back again before rushing the martial artist with the intent of pummeling him to the floor. Lu swiftly entered his original stance again before moving his hands in a circle. Hikisaku Ken no Ogi, Hyaku Netsu no Shinken. He went to counter Izuku's attack with his own. It was the Hikisaku Ken's ultimate technique, the one thing that was sure to always end his fights. Anytime he used this move, his enemies were torn apart. Even their bones were reduced to smithereens. Izuku held a shocked expression as he witnessed a flurry of fists closing in on him, showcasing a speed Lu hadn't used up until now. With clenched teeth, the horned boy brought his arms up to shield himself. Considering what Zhang Lu managed to do to him with weaker hits, he didn't need to be a genius to figure out that his natural body wouldn't be enough to protect him. He needed to use his quirk. Instead of turning fully or into a hybrid form, he covered his arms and the front of his body in scales right before the bull's fists landed. Intense pain shot up across his body as bullets the size of fists riddled him, giving him no mercy while they tore off pieces of his scales and flesh. He rarely ever bled, as even his father had tried to make him and failed despite his many tries. However, this time, his vision was all red. For the first in his life, he was bleeding as if he was close to losing the entirety of his life juice. Nevertheless, he stubbornly prevailed, retaining consciousness as he was thrown back. Not only he didn't want to lose, but he also absolutely refused to lie down. His pride wouldn't allow it. He stopped himself before his back could fall to the floor, and used his elbows to throw himself to his knees. "Gee, that should have killed him," Lu muttered, annoyed, but mostly impressed. Even if it didn't tear him apart, he should have lost chunks of flesh already. He yelled. "Aizu-kun," Himiko exclaimed, though everyone had been too focused on the fight to even notice her. She had never seen Izuku bleed so much in her life. There were red gashes all over his body, which spurted out blood all over him. She was worried, but she couldn't deny the injuries made him a lot cuter. So that was how he looked, all bloody. She loved it. Even adored it, but it would be horrible if he died. Still, he was on his knees but could fight on. She trusted him. Izuku observed his palm. He had never been pushed around like that. When was the last time he was in serious danger? Granted, he was barely using his quirk even now, but it was exciting. It broadened the possibilities for excitement so much. Just because he wanted to conquer Japan didn't mean he couldn't have fun along the way. Most of all, it wasn't just fun he was having. This was an interesting learning experience. It was time to finish things up. Despite all the blood his body was spewing out, those were superficial injuries that would heal in a few days thanks to his quirk, so he wasn't exactly worried about these even if they did serve to impress him. "How the hell are you still alive?" Lu questioned, flabbergasted by his opponent's resistance. "I'm tough," Izuku replied before standing up with his head high, much to the wonder of everyone around. "I do have to admit you have me pretty banged up, but it takes more than that to bring me down. If you want to kill me, then you'll have to cut off my head," he arrogantly stated. "No matter how much you hit me, it won't falter, it won't fall. My body is invincible," he smugly added. "Your body?" Lu clicked his tongue, glaring at the other horned man. "So that's it. This is your only weapon and talent. That tells me everything I need to know. You've been naturally gifted, and because of that you never put in any effort. You don't know what struggle is nor how to actually fight. All you ever used was brute and unbridled strength. I was like you when I was younger, but I've been humbled a few times, and thanks to that I've worked to perfect my art. I can't lose to someone who's all brawn," the martial artist scoffed proudly. "That's our boss. Teach him a lesson." "Not quite," Izuku muttered, ignoring the cheering of the crowd. He cracked his neck. "So, how did you do it, again?" he asked Zhang Lu, who only cocked an eyebrow in confusion. The green-haired boy bent his knees and arms and raised a hand above the other. The bull man widened his eyes in shock and instantly recognized the stance the dragon boy took. This was impossible. He was bluffing. He must have been bluffing. Even if his stance was actually perfect, imitating Zhang Lu's to the tiniest detail, he couldn't have. What was it called? Sora o Waru Ken. Right. Izuku brought his hand down, chopping the air in the direction of one of his men as if they were training dummies. The man he targeted froze, unable to react in time. He only stood there as all the flesh on his shoulder was torn clean off his body. Gra! He screamed in agony, collapsing to the floor while holding his shoulder. His comrades didn't move from their spot even to help him. They had been too shocked to even react. They had never seen anyone use that move apart from their leader. This isn't possible. That was my technique. He saw me use it only once, yet he copied it to perfection. Lu gulped, sweat running down his cheeks. Who the hell was this man? Yes, those techniques will be useful. I still want to learn more, Izuku stated while closing and opening his fist, watching it with great interest. With new abilities in hand, he felt even more invincible than he did earlier. No, this is a fluke. You couldn't have possibly learned it. Lu screamed, fury burning in his soul. You did by chance. You must have. Defeat is hard to accept, so I don't blame you for doubting. But we played around enough. We have to finish this, now, Izuku stated calmly as his body began changing. His skin shifted, slightly closing the holes across his body while green scales covered him. Both Zhang Lu and Himiko gasped as the man finally revealed his quirk, making even the gangsters step back as he changed. Green scales covered his whole body except for his abs. His nails turned into black draconic claws while his horn grew longer and larger along with green tips. 2 other horns sprouted out of the top of his head, resembling a crown. His legs changed shape, too, making him reach a higher height. With claws on his toes too, and sharp fangs, he really seemed like a monster. Finally, a large tail with dark green fur at the tip came out of his lower back. Even if he was still bloody, some of his injuries had been covered by the scales, hiding them as if he hadn't been hurt in the first place. The blonde girl could only watch in awe at her friend's transformation. She finally got to see his quirk. It was unlike anything she had expected. It looked impressive, specifically thanks to his size. He also didn't let anything slip when it came to what it was, and his horns weren't enough to point her in the right direction. This won't be enough to beat me. Lu growled, clenching his fists. Oh, it will, Izuku chuckled as he took Lu's stance again, making the other man jerk back. I won't let you use my moves anymore, he shouted before charging toward the dragon boy with his head down, aiming his horn at him. Nihiano Shikunetsu no Shinken. Izuku replicated the same moves as Zhang Lu did before throwing a series of fists at the charging man. Not only he used a similar technique, but it had been even stronger and deadlier as he landed twice as many hits as the bull did earlier. It was an even worse bloodbath than Izuku suffered through. Chunks of flesh were torn off Lu's body as the bull hybrid was thrown on his back, sliding across the floor and leaving a trail of red behind him. Miraculously, Lu survived. He lay down, panting and barely breathing while he gurgled blood. He wasn't even sure how he was still conscious yet. The women who lay on his lap earlier huddled together with the rest of the gang, too scared to even scream as they witnessed their leader's defeat. Monster, you're a monster, the man spat, wheezing with agony while Izuku turned back to normal. The boss was defeated, one of the gangsters stammered with sweat running down his forehead. Who the hell is this guy? Fuck this, I'm getting out of here. One of them shouted before fleeing toward the exit. Wait for me, another screamed before following after him. Soon enough, the others followed suit, running away in fear. Unfortunately for them all, a blonde girl intercepted them all, standing between them and the exit. Her wide smile sent shivers down all their spines, making them reconsider the idea of escaping. Sure, she looked like she was nothing but a young girl, but after seeing her partner's display, they began doubting they stood a chance. There was no way she wasn't secretly powerful, too. Where do you think you're going? Didn't I say you'll work under me? Izuku asked, tilting his head to the side. Don't run, guys, Zhang Lu ordered them, spitting out blood between his words. His eyes shifted to the man who defeated him. I give up. You win, ARH, we'll work for you, All of this is yours, he panted. He would gladly give up on his pride if it meant he would live. More than that, this man filled him with freezing and deathly fear. He never thought he would face such a monster in his lifetime. To think he didn't even fight at full strength until the end of their battle, Lu had been nothing but his plaything. But boss, one of the men tried to argue, only for Lu to grunt in pain as he tried to shout. No arguing. He is your new boss. Now, he interjected in anger, shutting up any resistance from his henchmen. He won fair and square. He's strong, too strong to resist him. At least, you're smart, Izuku stated to the fallen enemy before turning to the gangsters who were still frozen in fear. Treat him as quickly as possible. I want him to live, he ordered them casually. Oh, of course. One of them gulped before running to his former boss. As soon as he did, others followed to help him pull Lu's body to one of the private rooms and treat his injuries. With so many men, at least one of them should have some kind of healing quirk. I'll want to have a talk with him once he's better, he said while watching them take Zhonglu to safety. Good job securing the exit, Ace, he complimented Himiko as soon as she approached him. It was nothing, Ryu-kun, she blushed, smiling at the boy's kind words. Of course, she also stared at his bloodied body not so sneakily, wishing she could just have a taste of it, now. We'll need to talk about what to do next, he told her before addressing a nearby gangster. Hey, did your former boss has an office or something? He questioned. Why yes, sir, the underling replied before pointing in the office's direction with a shaky finger. Izuku didn't bother saying anything else before walking toward the office, followed by Himiko Toga. His new underlings already had their orders, which were to take care of the injured survivors. On the other hand, he needed to debrief the current situation with his blonde partner and rest. He already had a pretty good idea of how to proceed next, too. HMPF, he grumbled as he sat on the couch. The office was pretty spacious, which wasn't surprising considering who was the previous owner. Unfortunately, there was a mess. His desk was covered with paperwork lazily thrown together while the floor had articles of clothing sprawled around. He also just dirtied the floor with his blood, too. This was amazing, Izu-kun. Was that your quirk? Himiko asked excitedly. Yeah, I can turn into a dragon, basically, he finally revealed, leaning back on the couch. Whoa, the only person I can think of with a similar quirk is that dragon hero, Yukio, right? Yeah, but from what I've seen, she doesn't have a hybrid form like me. Besides, we're two different types of dragons, he responded before spitting out blood on the side. So you can turn into a full dragon. Why didn't you do it? Please, show me, please, please. She jumped up and down with excitement. She was also wondering what dragon blood tasted like. Seriously, those were creatures from myths and legends. Why didn't anyone take Yukio in a research lab yet or something? If I did, then it wouldn't be discreet. The whole place would probably collapse. I'm sure you'll see it one day, he retorted before placing a hand on his chest. I'll need to wrap some bandages, he grunted with annoyance. I'll grab some real quick, Himiko shouted, ready to run outside. Later, Izuku interjected, stopping her in her tracks. For now, we have more important matters to attend to. My injuries can wait. We succeeded in taking over, so at least that's one step done. You were so cool, Izu-kun. But why did you let that guy live? I get he's strong and you probably want him as a lieutenant, but he'll be pissed after what you did. What if he stabs in the back? She inquired. She was mostly worried about Izuku since she cared little about her safety at this point. It wasn't like anyone would miss her, anyway, except maybe for Izuku. She hoped he would miss her if that happened. Moreover, she lived a fun year until now. As if. I'm not letting him in my inner circle, that's for sure. But he can still be a pretty good asset. Don't worry about him. He knows he can't do anything to me, Izuku shook his head, scoffing. I showed him a peak he can never reach, and if even tires anything, I'll teach him another lesson until he learns, he threatened coldly. If Lu did try anything, then the horned boy would likely take one of his arms, or maybe something small to start. Tail or horns, perhaps. Besides, Jiren told us about him because he expected me to kill him, which meant this would benefit that old man. Is that a bad thing? Himiko arched an eyebrow. I think it is. A guy with so many contacts must have sworn allegiance to someone already, so as I told you, I can't trust him. I'd rather not do too many things that benefit him. Now that we got everything we needed to start our plan, we cut all contact with him, got it? He explained as Himiko saluted with a smile. Got it, she nodded. Good. Now about our situation. Unless we're alone or with someone we can trust, we only use our codenames when addressing each other. I'm Ryu, and you're Ace, he reaffirmed. Himiko nodded in understanding. Your quirk, too, must be kept a secret, all right? No one knows about it. No matter how much you trust them or even if they're in our crew, this must be our most well-kept secret, even more than my own quirk. This is an asset that we can't afford to lose, and the less people know about it, the more they'll fall prey to us. Your quirk will be one of our trump cards, understood? He explained. Oh, you're thinking so much ahead, Izu-kun. No problem. It wouldn't be the first time I have to hide it, anyway, she replied before pausing, realizing something. Wait, is that why my codename is Ace? Himiko blushed. You flatterer. I can change it, Izuku immediately threatened. Please, don't. Moving on. We still need to recruit more people and develop this place. That's another reason I kept Zhang around. He'll probably have useful information for me. Obviously, I won't be around here all day long because of the responsibilities I have in my regular life, so I'll count on you to take care of things when I'm not here since you have nothing else to do, Izuku instructed, making Himiko's eyes sparkle. So you're putting me in charge? She exclaimed eagerly. Only when I'm not around. Izuku barked to calm her down as quickly as possible and keep her from getting too excited. I'm telling you now, you better take things here seriously. I'm counting on you. I will, I promise, Himiko assured with a confident nod. Good, I guess we'll have to wait for Zhang to be in shape to talk, so we can figure out how to work with this place, Izuku rubbed the back of his head. Go and find me some bandages, he ordered, only for Himiko to grin. Gotcha, she shouted as she grabbed a knife and rushed at him, trying to stab one of his wounds. Unfortunately for her, her partner reacted quickly and blocked the incoming blade with his palm. Now, I thought it should have been clear when we made that agreement. Stabbing me where I'm already bleeding won't count. You still can't get any of my blood, Blondie, he grumbled while Himiko pouted. Also, you failed anyway, he added as he showed his unscathed palm. Since you failed. Yeah, I know, she replied before lifting her skirt, showing her white plain panties, which made Izuku raise an eyebrow. What are you doing? He questioned. I still didn't tell you what you have to do. But, that's what you've been telling me to do every time I failed until now, the blonde retorted in confusion. That doesn't mean I won't change my orders on a whim, Izuku scoffed. Show me your pussy instead, he instructed casually. Oh, so the same thing but without panties, the villainess plainly stated. Just do it already, alright, I just didn't expect you to be a perv, Izu-kun, the blonde villain giggled, madly blushing while she pulled her panties down. The long-haired dragon boy arched an eyebrow once he laid his eyes on her crotch. Both her vagina and panties were wet. His partner tried looking innocent, looking away while her fluids rolled down her legs. That blood actually turned you on, Izuku shouted, both shocked and disappointed. It's not my fault. Don't shame me, she yelled back, although she didn't seem that offended. It's just, you're so bloody, I like it, she giggled, still keeping her skirt up. That's the first time you asked me to show you what's under my panties, so does that mean, you want to take me now? She inquired, her heart beating faster. Hell number, I'm pissing blood here, I'm not an animal. I won't fuck in that condition, he replied while waving his hand. I wouldn't mind, you know. In fact, I would love it if we do it now. Himiko retorted, getting slightly too excited as she put her hands on one of Izuku's arms, leaving her panties behind. I know you would, he held the bridge of his nose. Just, get out and come back with bandages, he sighed. The fight actually tired him more than he anticipated. Izuku breathed out groggily, slowly stirring awake. The first thing he saw was an unfamiliar ceiling. The horned boy blinked a few times before remembering where he had been last night. Right, the wild dog's base. When had he fallen asleep? He couldn't remember. He rubbed his forehead before attempting to sit up, only to notice a light weight on his chest. The long-haired boy looked down and raised his eyebrow as he found out why felt like something was lying on top of him. It was because there was. While he was still wearing pants, his jacket had been thrown on a nearby chair, leaving him topless. His wounds had been covered with bandages. That, coupled with his accelerated healing, should get him in top shape in less than a week. Nevertheless, the thing that grabbed his attention was a person he knew quite well. Himiko Toga, in her usual clothes, was sleeping on his chest. It seemed his breathing was enough to wake her up as well, since her eyes slowly fluttered open. The blonde sat up, rubbing her eyes as she yawned. "Hey, Izu-kun. Good morning," she waved happily before throwing her arms around his neck and hugging him. "Did you sleep well?" the girl inquired with a wide grin while the boy sat up. "Why was I sleeping here in the first place?" he grumbled a question. "You were tired and needed rest, so I let you sleep," Himiko replied before quickly raising her hands in defense. "Just so you know, I called your mom to tell her you'll be sleeping at my place, so don't get mad," she stated, making Izuku sigh. "Well, at least you had enough sense to notify my mother," he breathed out in relief. Even if she wasn't that curious about his life, he still wanted to avoid having her wonder where he was and what he was doing as much as possible. "So, I did well." The blonde's eyes sparkled with hope. "Yeah, you did well," he confirmed, much to her joy. "Yes," she beamed before throwing herself at him again, rubbing her cheek against his chest. The action prompted Izuku to raise an eyebrow. He was aware of how much she loved blood and that she had taken a liking to him, which also assured him her loyalty. However, he was still wondering why it happened in the first place. Even if she believed in the world he wanted to make, she already had an abnormal devotion. He had a feeling why that was, but he needed confirmation before making any judgment. "You've been a loyal and good subordinate, but I just don't get why you're already all over me," Izuku remarked, making the blonde pause. "Mind helping me find out?" "Come on, Izu-kun, I told you already. I want your blood, and you're also like me," she answered while blushing. Oh, he was aware she wanted his blood. It was hard not to be. However, he needed more of an explanation than that. "I know that, and I also told you we have not faced the same hardships at all," Izuku shook his head. "While my peers may have feared me, taken me as a villain because of my intimidating looks, or even had the balls to say it to my face, I didn't let it deter me. I showed them I wasn't to be messed with. Soon enough, no one dared speak against me again. Apart from that guy," Izuku muttered the last part, thinking about Katsuki and how brash the other boy was every time they confronted each other. "We had the same problem, but we took it differently," Himiko reasoned with a confident gaze. "You fought it head on, but I ran away. I was a coward, but it was probably the best solution at the time," she lowered her eyes in sadness. "But in the end, you got lackeys, not friends. Am I wrong? All this time, you've been alone, right?" she asked softly, locking eyes with him. "Just like me," the blonde added, gently putting a hand over his arm. Izuku looked down in silence, taking in her words. He did not know what to answer. He contemplated the past years. Was she right? He couldn't deny having no friends. He didn't trust anyone, not after everything his father taught him. Even now, he didn't trust her fully even if she was his closest ally. Was he mad about it, though? Perhaps saddened. He did not feel the urge to cry when thinking back to the times he was alone at school while everyone else played with their friends. Honestly, he didn't feel much about it. No one was interesting enough to befriend. No one he could relate to either. He had peace of mind, and after his father's passing, he was also free to do as he wished. However, maybe having someone to rely on at the time would have been nice. "I'm not as relatable as you think," he mumbled dismissively. "Don't get me wrong, I always fell in love easily," Himiko lightly grinned, playing with her knife, prickling her fingers with it. "With heroes, Villains, animals, boys, girls, she listed before looking up again. But I decided to choose you. You're the only one who understands 'cause your dream's my dream. I want to live in a world where I can be myself freely, the one you'll make. You said you'll do it, so as long you fight for that, I'll be by your side, she assured him. When I make a promise, I keep it, Izuku confirmed confidently. I know, she responded before climbing on his knees and kissing him on the lips, much to his surprise. Her lips were softer than he expected them to be. Plus, I know you're all over me, too, Izu-kun. Otherwise, you wouldn't ask me to do perverted stuff every day, she licked her lips after breaking the kiss, blushing. All right, I'll admit it, you're a bold one, the horn boy conceded as Himiko let go of him and climbed off the couch, giving her leader some space. What about our men? Did anything happen while I was asleep? He questioned. He also hoped the blonde did as instructed and didn't reveal her quirk to anyone, but he trusted her to keep this a secret at least. Some of them tried to talk to you but I told them you needed rest. They wanted to know what your intentions are going forward, she explained with Izuku nodding along in understanding. Not much will change for them for now. They'll just have a different face to report to, the green-haired boy replied. He hoped to expand this small operation, attract more people, and even get a foothold in other fields such as drug dealings. Until then, most of them would work as usual until they were given new orders. What about Zhonglu? Is he alive or did he kick the bucket? Last I checked, he was breathing. I exchanged a few words with him to see how he was doing, the girl responded. And, he can talk, she shrugged nonchalantly. Then bring him here, I want to speak with him, Izuku ordered while the blonde tilted her head. Are you sure you don't want more rest? Besides, Zhang can barely move, so it'd be best if you go to him instead, Himiko reasoned, only for the boy to shake his head. Bring him here, he grumbled, unwilling to argue further. All right, I'm on it. The blonde responded, seeing that there was no use trying to convince him otherwise. Moreover, it wasn't like she actually cared about Zhang's well-being anyway. Izuku sat back while his subordinate walked out of the room. This went even better than expected. Not only he managed to acquire a group and a base of operation, but he also had a powerful fighter in his ranks. Since he never heard of Zhonglu's name, that villain must have remained mainly in the shadows, so he was lucky to stumble upon an asset like him. This was a wonderful start to his operation. He might even celebrate his success tonight with a small party. Although, he doubted his new recruits would be thrilled to celebrate their subjugation with their new master. Oh, well, it wasn't like they had a choice anyway. If everything goes so well once in UA, then he may have a whole army of former heroes in training. And they wouldn't be the only ones under his rule. Villains and even pro-heroes could follow, all he needed was to find the right ones. He needed to be careful, though. He heard that the school principal was quite intelligent, so he could potentially notice something was amiss. Now wasn't the time to worry since he wasn't there yet, but he should keep this in mind. His thoughts were suddenly interrupted when the door to his office was opened. The first one to enter was Himiko, or rather Ace now since they weren't alone. The other was Zhonglu, accompanied by two other men who helped him walk with his arms over their shoulders. The bull was limping, grunting with every step. It wasn't surprising considering the state he was in. Nearly his whole upper body was under multiple layers of bandages, a statement of how much more damage he received than Izuku. You called, Master, Zhang asked as he put a knee on the floor, much to the shock of his former subordinates. He gritted his teeth through the pain and bowed his head. Oh, Izuku smirked, intrigued. Himiko grinned, also enjoying the man's groveling. Why the sudden devotion? He questioned. Not that he didn't believe it. No, he could see the sincerity in the man's body language. Do you already fear me that much? He mused. It is not fear that makes me bow, but rather respect. I was wrong about you. I misjudged you. I trained my whole life to master the Hikisaku Ken, yet it only took you a glance to mimic my moves. You possess a level, a peak, I could never reach, Zhang admitted. It would take nothing short of a combat genius to accomplish what the boy did, which was what Zhang considered himself before meeting him and realizing how foolish and arrogant he had been. I am not strong enough to oppose you, nor do I have the will. You spared me so I could serve you. As you hold my life in your hands, I will serve, he declared before bowing again. I will also teach you the Hikisaku Ken as you have wished to yesterday, he confirmed. Well, that is even better than I thought, Izuku chuckled with his arms crossed. Since you respect me so, it is only right that I do the same. You will be a valuable asset to me, so don't disappoint me. What I've done here is only the start. Just know that soon, you will have more riches than you could imagine. You've chosen the right team, he explained, which only served to confuse Zhang and the two men accompanying him as they had no idea what the boy had in store for the future. Izuku then gestured to the blonde girl standing at his side. This is my lieutenant, Ace. You will answer directly to her when I am not around as she will be in charge in such a case. Himiko waved with a cheerful smile. What, this brat? One of the men immediately voiced his rejection. Shut up, you imbecile. Zhang snapped the moment the minion spoke. But, the other man tried to argue, only to be interrupted when something cold reached his throat. He widened his eyes before glancing behind him. Somehow, the blonde had snuck behind him while he was talking to his former boss. Brat, you say, Himiko repeated snarkily to the shaking and sweaty man. When did she? I didn't even feel her presence. Zhang thought while watching the display. He was aware that she worked under him from what he had seen yesterday, but he had no idea what her abilities were. She must have some kind of presence erasing or stealth quirk to move around like that. I'm sorry, the man stammered an apology with shaking legs. I think he learned his lesson. Ace, let him go, Izuku ordered, to which Toga quickly complied, snickering as she walked by her leader's side. The horned boy turned his attention to the man who spoke out of turn. As for you, if you ever talk smack about one of my subordinates like that, you'll be left in pieces. Even worse than your former boss, he threatened, gesturing to Zhang and making the man he spoke to gulp. Understood. Why, yes, sir. The man swiftly responded fearfully. Meanwhile, Himiko glanced back at the boy, hiding a blush behind one of her sleeves. Good. I called you here Zhang because I wanted to discuss the establishments and this group's future, Izuku explained. He knew waiting for their injuries to heal would have been wiser. That way, both of them could have some rest and a clearer mind when speaking of this. However, his patience was thin, and he didn't want to waste more time when he only had less than 10 months before getting into UA High. Before that, sorry for interrupting, but what made you choose to take over our group? How did you find us? Zhang inquired. It was a question that burned his mind ever since he woke up. Jiren told me about you. Said you didn't do any business with him, so you wouldn't be a loss of profit if you wiped out, Izuku replied bluntly. He had no reason to hide Jiren's name or keep his involvement a secret. The man had been useful, but he didn't earn Izuku's respect or trust. What? You must cut any ties with him this instant. Zhang Lu nearly jumped to his hooves, only for his haunches to crack and force him to sit back down. Trying to give me orders. Izuku narrowed his eyes, making the humanoid bull back away. I already decided not to contact him anymore, anyway, but still I'm curious. Why did you get so worked up? The horned boy calmed down. Didn't you hear the rumors? Better than rumors, I know from a trusted source that Jiren may work for, All for One, Zhang revealed fearfully while Izuku cocked an eyebrow. All for One, who is that? He questioned with a tilt of his head. While Himiko was silent, she was just as curious as he was. Don't you know? The boogeyman, the one who steals quirks. Him. That's an internet conspiracy theory, Izuku scoffed dismissively. It holds no value nor power over me, he shook his head. It is more than a conspiracy, master. Please, you have to heed my words. Jiren works with him or for him, I don't know, but he is real. People have been disappearing, and some came back with no quirks. Because they're not fond of the law, they never see the police or the heroes, but that kind of information does reach my ears and potentially the ears of other organizations. That is why I cut all contact with Jiren. I was afraid my quirk would be stolen, too, Zhang explained desperately, which seemed to be enough to make Izuku consider the man's words. The boy hummed. All myths and legends have partial truths in them, and you could say the same for some conspiracy theories. Maybe the idea of someone stealing quirks wasn't that outlandish. Could Jiren really be in contact with someone like that? He had no way of knowing for sure unless he confronted him directly. However, he wasn't fond of the risk of losing his quirk either. If All for One existed, then he would be a danger to him. Very well, I will look into it, Izuku conceded, much to Lu's relief. Besides, as I already said, I cut ties with Jiren already. I don't need him anymore. First of all, the name Wild Dogs does not exist anymore. We're changing that since I'm in charge, he declared. It seemed one of the two men Zhang brought with him wanted to protest. However, a single from Ace was enough to shut him up as she simply put a finger to her lips in a shushing manner. From now on, we are the Beast Lord's Legion. As you wish, Master, Zhang bowed his head in acceptance. With a name like this, our numbers better increase if we want it to fit, Izuku grumbled since from what he had seen yesterday, most of the wild dogs had been here, and he wasn't impressed. We will do our best to find new recruits, but if our establishment sinks, then it will be all the more difficult, Zhang reasoned. If we want it to succeed, then we have to change strategies. Whose idea was it to use a restaurant as a cover? Izuku asked. However, before Zhang could even respond, the boy continued. No matter, it's stupid. Taking care of a restaurant is unnecessary trouble, and hard as a brick shit. Moreover, it's not even the kind of clientele you would want to attract. It also makes it even harder for your real customers to access this strip club in secret. Kinda hard to be sneaky. Well, Zhang stuttered, unsure of how to respond. He chose a restaurant mainly because his parents owned one, but when he said it like that, he couldn't deny that there were likely better options. There is something much better to use as a cover. A nightclub. Izuku crossed his arms. All you have to worry about are the drinks and the music. It'll also be easier to sneak here because of the lighting and how many people there'll be. I suppose changing the cover into a nightclub won't be a problem, but its size will be disappointing for a nightclub since this building was originally built to house a restaurant, Zhang replied, which didn't seem to bother Izuku. It's fine. We can expand it once we have the money for it, he assured. I found some guys to expand the strip club, but since we need renovations upstairs, I could direct them there. With their help, the place should be ready in less than 2 weeks, Zhang explained. That's fast, the horned boy remarked contentedly. They're professionals. Their quirks are suited for work like this, and they'll keep quiet, too, Zhang affirmed proudly. He found these workers himself on the darknet. They worked illegally because they had no license to build or use their quirks in public. I'm assuming you have what you need to pay them. I want someone to give me a report later about all of your activities. I need to know what's bringing the money here, Izuku ordered. Of course, it's only natural, Zhang nodded. The strip club wasn't their only source of income, but it was their most profitable, until recently. Now, there's one thing that's been bugging me since yesterday. Midoriya tapped on one of his knees with his finger. Why was the establishment closed? And how are your affairs going? He inquired. Zhang gulped. Damn it, so he noticed. Not good. Not good at all, he shook his head disappointedly. We have fewer and fewer customers. The most loyal are still coming, but even they are starting to waver. Do you have any idea why? The Dragon Boy doubted it was something natural. An establishment like theirs shouldn't lose customers for no reason so suddenly. Considering Zhang already made an enemy of Jiren, he wouldn't surprised that he had more. However, was it someone else's doing or Jiren's? Well, since you are in charge now, I suppose it is only right for you to know, Zhang looked down in shame. The truth is, I'm at odds with the Chinese mafia, he revealed, making Izuku arch an eyebrow and Himiko widen her eyes. The Chinese mafia? Are you serious? Izuku questioned, narrowing his eyes. This may bring him trouble, but they operate in the Aichi prefecture, in the city of Nagoya, Zhang revealed. It was quite close to Shizuoka, and most importantly to Musudafu. I've been one of their members for years. I even came to Japan with one of their guys, but after being accused of betrayal, I left their ranks. I kept telling them that I was framed, but no one listened, the humanoid bull spat with anger. Ever since that day, They've been sending assassins after my head. Since those idiots couldn't take me out, they decided to ruin my business. I have no proof, but I'm certain they've been throwing negative rumors about this place. I even discovered that some of my dancers were forced to quit after being threatened, he explained while the horned boy put a hand to his chin, thinking over all the information he gained. That's super bad, Ryu-kun. Ace exclaimed worriedly. These idiots just got us in trouble with the mafia. Understandably, she was panicking since this wasn't a part of their plan at all. No, wait, that may not be as bad as you think. Izuku raised a hand to stop her rambling, earning curious glances from everyone in the room. Wait, really? Himiko inquired, baffled. This could be a great opportunity for partnership, the green-haired boy reasoned. While the blonde seemed to agree after thinking it over, Zhang was uncertain. That may be risky. Even if I'm not in charge anymore, they still want my head. The fact that I work for you now will also pull their ire to you. Moreover, they will request proof of your usefulness concerning this partnership, he explained, making Ace groan. Giving them your head would resolve all of these issues, Izuku suddenly interjected, making Lu widen his eyes while his former men backed away in fright. I remove their problem, show them how useful and reliable I can be, and how strong I am, too. I kill several birds with one stone. But don't worry, I have an even better idea, he reassured the man, prompting him to breathe in relief. The fact that you have a bull head is your saving grace. All we have to do is find a bull that resembles you and send its head to the Chinese mafia. I'm sure they'll be willing to talk to me after that, he explained his plan. But we'll need to find a whole live bull first, Zhang pointed out. Your life's on the line. I'm sure you'll manage to do that when you have that much to lose, Izuku rolled his eyes. Lu nodded, finding it hard to deny what he said. Do we need to do all that, though? Can't you just kill their leader and take his place, Ryu-kun? Himiko suggested. It's not that simple, Izuku shook his head. The mafia isn't like these idiots, he said, gesturing to Zhang and his men, who took offense to that but remained silent. They are not the kind to respect might above all else. Their boss is like family, his officers likely have close trusting relations with him. They would not join me, no matter how powerful I am. I would have to kill them all and leave only the small fries, but as you might expect, small fries are not my priority. For now, we need the mafia alive. They likely have a lot of connections and resources, so having them as allies is more beneficial for us, Izuku reasoned while Ace nodded along. She could see his point, even if she wasn't a fan since she would like to see more of the boy's violent nature. Zhang's jaw nearly dropped at the two's discussion. They were so casual about dealing with the Chinese mafia that he could barely believe it. The mafia had a few dangerous individuals, but from what he had seen from Ryu's power, the dragon should have not any issues killing them if they were to fight. However, trying to do so would be foolish. He was greatly surprised to see that Ryu had enough sense to use diplomacy instead. He expected him to be a brute, but he was cunning, too. The more time passed, the more he was proven right to bend the knee to him. To think he was ready to launch a raid on the mafia before Ryu came here. I'll task someone with finding us a bull whose head we can pass off as mine, Zhang confirmed. I'll also take care of changing the restaurant into a nightclub, but we'll have to close the strip club until the construction is complete. That's fine. What are your other sources of income? Izuku asked. Jiren didn't give him much information about their group, after all. We just opened a meth and coke lab outside Chinatown. We were about to start a drug-dealing business. However, before that, and aside from the strip club, we've been laundering money for a few groups, Zhang responded. Money laundering? Seriously? Izuku deadpanned in disappointment. It's a good business, Zhang Lu defended himself. Well, focus on that, then. I also want you to start that drug-dealing business as swiftly as possible, he ordered the humanoid bull, who nodded in agreement. Once we're done with these things, I'll tell you about my future plans. Bring you up to speed. Huh, I thought you'd want to be making money, Zhang tilted his head. The money is only a means to an end. What I want is much more than that, and the second step can only start in less than 10 months, Izuku replied. Before Zhonglu could say anything, the boy cut him off. Since it'll be noon soon, I have to leave to take care of some other business. Ace will be in charge while I'm away, he gestured to the girl. Very well, Zhang nodded while Himiko silently cheered, happy to hear that Izuku was putting her trust in her. I want to throw a celebration for the new management, Izuku smirked pridefully. So tonight, I want you to bring all your girls and men. With drinks, too, we'll have a nice party, he instructed. That will cost us some money, Zhang pointed out. They wouldn't even gain any since the club wouldn't be open either. However, he couldn't deny that a party could help calm and relax his former men down. It would make them more accepting of their new leader. Doesn't matter, I want it done, Izuku retorted before waving them away. Now, shoo, meeting adjourned, he added dismissively, prompting them to leave. Naturally, Himiko stayed behind, waiting for them to exit the room before turning to Izuku. What do you want me to do? She inquired eagerly. She wanted to be useful, too. For now, nothing. Just stay here and make sure nothing happens. I didn't give them too many orders either because I just took over. I want to make everything go smoothly, so it's best if they see I can give the carrot as well as the stick, he explained to her while putting on his leather jacket, reminding himself that it was damaged in the fight. You got it. I won't disappoint you, Himiko assured him with determination. I'm counting on you, Toga, he declared, already ready to leave since he had nothing with him except his clothes. However, he stopped himself when he noticed the blonde was pouting. What? You could use my first name, you know, she mumbled with her arms crossed. Ever since they met, he either called her by her last name or now her codename. It was especially annoying since she used his first name. She even gave him a nickname. She could see that he was about to protest, so she cut him off before he had the chance to. You've seen my panties multiple times. I even showed my pussy, so that's the least you could do. She huffed, making the boy sigh. Okay, Himiko, he conceded, seeing no point in arguing. Besides, she wasn't completely wrong. The blonde beamed instantly, smiling wide. I love hearing you say my name. Why don't you try big sis Himiko, now? She suggested, only for Izuku to sharply turn away. Fuck you, he grumbled, quickly walking out and closing the door behind before she could say anything. The former schoolgirl giggled to herself, enjoying his reaction. She would have quite a lot of fun with him, even more than before. Izuku sighed as he entered his home. He didn't even know what he would tell his mother concerning his injuries. Even if she couldn't see them, the fact that there were so many bandages would suffice to tell he was hurt. A part of him figured she wouldn't question it as usual, but you could never be certain. From what Himiko told him, his mother thought he slept at the blonde's place, but apart from that, he had no idea what she told her. Again, he likely wouldn't have to explain anything. However, once he got home, the house was eerily silent. She should have been making lunch at this time, usually. However, there was no sound coming from the kitchen. He decided to check there, first. As expected from his earlier deduction, there was no one here. Looking around, Izuku's eyes landed on a cardboard bag with the logo of a fast food brand. If that was here, then it could only mean one thing. He swiftly grabbed the bag to check its contents. Just as he thought, this was what he usually bought to eat in that particular fast food chain, which meant that Inko went out and bought it for him. He rubbed his forehead in annoyance. Since she already went to buy some groceries earlier this week, she didn't go out because of that. Because of the loss of her job and the severe lack of friends, his mother had no reason to go out. Thus, narrowing down the reasons she went out was easy. She went to see Mitsuki again and bought him some food on the way home. It wasn't that he disliked Mitsuki, he had nothing against the woman despite the little shit she called a son annoyed him on a daily basis. In fact, he would say she was quite pleasing to look at, and the thought alone made him chuckle. What annoyed him about her was the fact that his mother just wouldn't stop bothering him to go with her and see the Bakugos, specifically Mitsuki. He could understand since they were childhood friends. Perhaps, she wanted to show her best friend how her son was faring. However, if these two wanted to see him that badly, they could just as well come to the Midoriya residence. It would also take care of another problem he had with Mitsuki, which was to force Inko to walk all the way to her house even though she had a hard time walking with her prosthetic. His mother not only didn't want to tell her about it but she didn't even want to get a car, at least. The boy grumbled a few swears under his breath before going to his mother's bedroom. If she wasn't in the living room, then she was perhaps sleeping. A few steps later, he was already inside. As expected, she was there, sleeping on her bed. She wasn't under the sheets, and she was still dressed in her usual clothes, which meant she was likely only taking a nap. Ever since his father died, she hadn't been eating well, so she was a bit thinner than normal and easier to tire out. Her prosthetic was off, sitting beside the bed. Perhaps he could buy her a new one soon. He was about to earn much more money than before, so might as well use it. He'd have to talk to her about it, though. Just as he was about to turn around and walk away, Izuku noticed something held in her hand, which was clutching protectively. Curious, he approached her bed before leaning down to take it. It was a photo. It wasn't framed, which he would have expected to be since she seemed to hold it so close to her. How strange. They didn't have many photos, so most of them were familiar to him, but this one didn't ring any bell. After a good look, he recognized everyone on it. It was his parents and the Bakugos. It was taken a long time ago since they were all in school uniforms. His mother and Mitsuki wore sailor uniforms with blue skirts while his father and Masaru wore an all-black uniform similar to the one he possessed. His mother was on the left, beaming with joy and a wide smile with an arm wrapped around Masaru's neck, pulling him toward her. Masaru stood between her and Mitsuki, struggling to stand straight since he was dragged down. Mitsuki had a hand on his shoulder as she was pulling Hisashi toward the group. While his father looked unwilling to take part in the photo since Mitsuki pulled him in, he was also smiling as wide as the others. Izuku didn't think his old man could even be this happy. Still, this was the first time he ever saw that photo. He was aware Inko and Mitsuki were childhood friends, but he didn't know they met Masaru and his old man in middle school. He had no idea why his mother didn't want to display it, but he didn't care enough to find out. The horned boy put the photo on the bedside table and then left the room. Izuku grabbed the bag she left in the kitchen, then sat down in silence in the living room. Now that he thought about it, with the new resources he had, he could get himself a weapon, couldn't he? Take this, Bakugo shouted as he cocked his fist back, and punched forward, creating an explosion the moment his hand made contact with his target. The blonde teen stood in his backyard, using his personal training dummy. Because his parents were fairly well off, not only did they have a large house, but they also had a spacious backyard, which the blonde used quite a lot for his training. Public use of quirks is prohibited, but doing it on private property was another matter. So this was a perfect place to train for him. Moreover, his parents also used that money to buy him a training dummy since they always fully supported his dream of becoming a hero. The dummy he was using his quirk on was made to withstand explosions like his. It was made of hardened steel so that it wouldn't break or even melt unless attacked by exceptionally high temperatures. Of course, using his explosions on that thing wasn't enough to improve himself. He needed to be stronger physically, too. Sure, he worked out, but he wanted to withstand the pain and make his blows stronger. Thus, he regularly punched or kicked that pole, even risking breaking his knuckles or legs. The blonde looked down at his hands, which were shaking and covered in bruises. His knuckles were slightly bloody, but nothing too serious. He needed to be stronger, to be the best. He needed to train every day without fault, otherwise he wouldn't become number one. All of it was to surpass All Might, and him. The one wall in his life. The one that stood in his way the most. The one obstacle that looked insurmountable. If it weren't for him, he would have lived the life of a king by now. Everyone around him would have realized the pebbles they were when faced with him. Well, everyone except his parents, because the old hag he called a mother didn't know her place. He let out a battle cry as he slammed his fist into the dummy again, pain shooting through his whole body as something cracked. This was nothing. If he couldn't handle some steel, then he couldn't handle him. He imagined that guy standing where the training dummy was, making him look up. There stood Midoriya Izuku, who he often called Snake Breath. They were somewhat childhood friends before that relationship abruptly ended. Bakugo clenched his teeth. He couldn't stand looking weak compared to him. He was the best. If he couldn't defeat him, then Katsuki wasn't the best, was he? You bastard, how dare you think you're better than me? Katsuki shouted at the illusion of the other teen, who remained silent. The blonde would never forget the humiliation he suffered that day. 10 years ago. Are we going exploring again? Tsubasa asked while stretching out his wings. Nah, my mom said we couldn't go too far today. Katsuki clicked his tongue with his arms crossed. I'm too lazy to go anywhere. Anyway, Saito, who extended one of his fingers to scratch the top of his head, replied. The three boys were currently in a park near their homes, and usually, they would go into the nearby forest to explore. Wanna play heroes and villains? Can me and Tsubasa play the heroes this time? He asked hopefully. However, before Katsuki could reply, the boy turned around. What do you say, Midoriya? He inquired to the fourth boy. The green-haired kid was playing in the sandpit, building a sand castle with the help of a bucket. He didn't seem to have paid attention to their current conversation as he turned to look at them. Yeah, that's fine, the boy shrugged before standing up and dusting off his clothes. Nice. Can we? Saito addressed the blonde boy this time, who merely scoffed. Don't wanna. He shook his head. Saito and Tsubasa's faces fell in disappointment, but before they could make a remark, a feral grin suddenly formed on the blonde's face. I've got a better idea. Look over there. He pointed at a nearby tree. There was a boy their age sitting in the shade and playing with figurines. Isn't that Muto? Tsubasa muttered in confusion. Yup, I heard yesterday that he was quirkless. Katsuki laughed and slammed a fist in his palm. Let's beat that loser up. That'll be so awesome. Saito immediately perked up excitedly. The blonde proudly snickered. Of course, they were on board with this. He had such a great quirk, so it only made sense that they would listen to him. And it made even more sense to beat Muto's quirkless butt to the ground. This extra dared getting a better mark than Katsuki the other day in school, even though he was nothing. Watching him wither in pain would be enjoyable, and probably quite funny. However, another voice suddenly brought his excitement to an end. Why? Katsuki widened his eyes before turning to look at the one who asked as Tsubasa and Saito did the same. It was Izuku. The green-haired boy stood there nonchalantly. What do we get out of this? The boy asked, seeing as his three friends weren't responding. What do you mean? Saito inquired, unsure of what he was getting at. Isn't it obvious? What do we get out of it? His lunch money, his toys. Izuku clarified his question. Katsuki frowned. Why the hell was he questioning him? He was supposed to be one of his sidekicks and nothing else. We get fun out of it, duh. He's a loser and I want to beat him up, that's all. The blonde loudly responded. Oh, I'm not interested then. Not worth the trouble. Izuku shrugged, then turned around to walk back to his castle. What do you mean you're not interested? Katsuki stepped up, making the other boy pause and look at him in confusion. You should be. We all got quirks and he's a nobody. Don't you think strong guys like us should put weaklings like him in their place? Oh, so that's what this is about. Izuku grinned in realization. If I did that to everyone, then I'd have to beat you, too, guys, he explained with a carefree attitude. Tsubasa and Saito exchanged nervous looks while Katsuki laughed. He wasn't surprised these two were already shitting their pants at the prospect. The two of them were pretty weak compared to him and Izuku. However, they were still better than someone quirkless. I know these two aren't much, but ya don't need them like that. They're still stronger than that quirkless weakling, Katsuki snickered. Izuku, however, tilted his head in confusion. I was talking about you, too, though, he revealed, much to the blonde's shock. What? He immediately stopped laughing. Whether someone's quirkless or as strong as you, it's all the same to me. I don't really notice a difference, Izuku shrugged nonchalantly. Katsuki froze. What did that bastard say? He didn't mean it, did he? There was no way. How dare he talk to him that way? How dare he imply he was no better than that quirkless weakling? Everyone else was smart enough to see how much better his quirk was, so why didn't he get it? Was he too arrogant because of his quirk? If that was the case, then Katsuki needed to teach him a lesson he would never forget and teach him to respect him. Oi, that's not true. Take that back. Katsuki spat with anger. Huh, why? Izuku asked in confusion. I'm just telling the truth, he shrugged. You, the blonde growled, his blood boiling. The other two extras were losing respect for him. He could feel it, he knew it. Then I'll make you take it back. He launched himself, sparks flying out of his palms. The next thing Katsuki perceived was the sky. The young boy lay on his back, bruised up and with a bleeding nose. He was unable to stand back and held his head in pain. The blonde did his best to hold down his tears, but the pain as well as the humiliation of that instant defeat made it quite difficult. Tsubasa and Saito stood at his side, asking him if he was all right and trying to help him to his feet. However, he remained down. Damn it, they were taking pity on him. Meanwhile, Izuku stood there, completely unscathed. It didn't look like he had been in a fight at all. Why did you attack me? Aren't you supposed to be my buddies? The green-haired boy asked with narrowed eyes. However, after receiving no response for several seconds, he sighed. Oh, well, I guess I was wrong. It was fun hanging out with you while it lasted. See ya, he waved before leaving. What these three didn't know was that he had already been used to people who were supposed to be on his side attacking him, and his father was the biggest proof of that. He supposed they were never friends in the first place, so he bid them goodbye. With shaking legs, Katsuki stood on his knees, watching the other boys back as he left. There was no way, he couldn't even scratch him. Why couldn't he? Izuku couldn't be better than him, could he? He was supposed to be the best. How did he dare speak to him that way? Katsuki gritted his teeth. No matter what happened, he would make him pay. Present. Ever since that day, Bakugo had been training ceaselessly, growing stronger every day. He would challenge Izuku from time to time, and lose every time. Unfortunately, it was like he made no progress, but he knew that wasn't the case. He was perfectly aware he was strong, now. However, since the horned teen hadn't accepted any challenge for the past few years, he couldn't tell if he was on his level. Bakugo had a feeling he wasn't. His opportunity to show how much he had improved and see if he surpassed Izuku would come soon, though. Once they would both enter UA, something he was also mad at because he wanted to be the only one in Aldera to get in, he'd show everyone. Katsuki. His mother suddenly called out to him from inside the house. The blonde teen clicked his tongue, gave one last look to his training dummy, and then went back to his house. He was aware that his mom would only annoy him more if he didn't listen. Come on, you trained enough. You'll blow the neighbors' eardrums if this goes on, Mitsuki said as her son went in. TCH. There's no reason I should give a shit, Katsuki replied dismissively. Well, you should, because any problem you cause is my responsibility, you shitty brat. Mitsuki shouted at him, showing clearly where he got that temper from. However, she immediately calmed down once she noticed his bloody hands. What the hell happened to your hands? Nothing, old hag, Katsuki yelled back at her before trying to go up the stairs. I need a shower, so don't bother me. How many times have we told you that this training dummy is for your quirk only? Exclamation mark. You're not supposed to bust your hands on it like a dumbass. Mitsuki shouted. However, the teen scoffed and ignored her. This was already a shitty day, and he didn't want it to be worse by arguing with her. Thus he walked away without a care in the world. For fuck's sake, that kid doesn't listen to shit, she pinched the bridge of her nose. Sometimes, she didn't know what to do with him. She should ask Inko for tips because the other woman never complained about her son, so she must have been doing something right with Izuku. Katsuki glanced down at his bloody knuckles again and sighed. No matter what anyone said, this wasn't enough. Later, in the evening. Now that's what I call a party. Izuku laughed cheerfully as he made his way to the counter. Much better than the boring fest I stumbled on yesterday, he exclaimed. The gang's strip club was far livelier than before. Following his instructions, Zhang Lu opened it to as many clients as possible, even if most were their own members. Music blared throughout the room, while colorful lights flashed incessantly to which several strippers pole danced. Some wore bikinis, like the ones he saw at Zhang's feet yesterday. Others wore something more classic, bunny suits. Some simply had lingerie on. He could say there was some variety, but nothing crazy. The important part was that everyone seemed to have fun, especially since they still had a supply of drinks after the ones he broke when he came in the first time. He rarely had the opportunity to celebrate, so he also never organized parties. Some of his schoolmates invited him to their parties, of course, but it was nothing as entertaining as what he would see on the TV or the internet. The kind of parties they weren't allowed to organize because of their ages. Obviously, he wanted to grab the first girl he'd lay his eyes on and have her give him a private dance, especially because of his pumping blood. His draconic blood would make him wild and bloodthirsty, which could be fixed with a fight or more peaceful means. A strip club was a good way to do it. However, he needed to check on Zhang and Himiko first. After passing the counter, Izuku's eyes finally landed on the two. They were toward the back of the room, sitting on armchairs around a dancer currently performing on a pole. The horned boy grinned before rushing to join them. A guy his size was hard to miss, so most of his new henchmen fearfully bowed to him every time he crossed their path. Even if they had fun, they still hadn't accepted him fully, but if their fear of him overshadowed the temptation of betrayal, then it was good, too. "Oh, Ryu-kun," Himiko exclaimed the moment she noticed him. Thankfully, it looked like she still didn't forget they used codenames in public. "Master," Zhang greeted him, getting off the chair and kneeling to him despite the injuries he was riddled with. "Yo," Izuku smiled before gesturing for the bull man to get up. "Come on, there's no need for that. We're here to have a good time, aren't we?" He snickered as he grabbed a nearby armchair and sat in it while Zhang Lu returned to his seat as instructed. "I'm happy you listened and put your all in this night, even if it was improvised. After all, they were supposed to be on the verge of closing because of the mafia. It would have been understandable if they couldn't afford to open this night and make it look so good. Izuku would have still severely punished them for it, of course, but still. Thank you, Master. I only did as you ordered, but to be honest, I'm quite satisfied with the result, too. It seems everyone is having fun, even though it is likely in order to forget yesterday's night," Zhang responded. Good, good," Izuku nodded then turned to Himiko. "Everything went well, Ace?" he inquired. "Yup, no problem. Organizing this was pretty fun." The blonde girl grinned before picking a drink up from the table and showing it to him. It was seemingly a red cocktail. "I even got to try some cranberry margarita. It's pretty good." "Let me try," he said, gesturing for her to hand it over. She did so without hesitation, and Izuku raised the drink to his lips. He pursued his lips as he tasted it, letting half of the drink flow down his throat. It was refreshing, that was for sure. It had a bold and tart flavor, but it was also sweet. "Give us more of that," he ordered a nearby henchman before returning the drink to his companion. "I'd say you've got good tastes, but knowing you, you probably picked this one because of the color," he remarked. "What? No," Himiko giggled sheepishly. "Anyway, I was starting to wonder if you'd even show up." "Of course, I would. Was it getting too boring without me?" he replied. "No," Himiko shook her head, then glanced toward the dancer before them. "This place is pretty fun, and I also never thought I'd see so many boobies in one place," the blonde commented, blushing while watching the woman's boobs jiggle as she danced, her eyes following the stripper's chest everywhere. "Never been to a place like this?" Izuku questioned with a raised eyebrow. No, I never thought about it," Himiko shrugged. After all, she had too many problems to ever think of enjoying herself like this. Even alcohol had never been on her mind before since all she thought about was blood. However, discovering new experiences was pretty nice. "Did you?" she inquired. Not I haven't either," the horned boy replied, much to Zhang's surprise. "Really? I thought someone your age and of your caliber would have, Master," the bull man spoke. Someone my age, the hell's that supposed to mean?" Izuku grunted in annoyance, ticked off by the other man's remark. However, before Zhang Lu could ask what offended him, the green-haired man waved the remark off. Just forget it. Let's have some fun, alright. This is a great day. Izuku exclaimed cheerfully. Who wouldn't be happy to have their plans go so smoothly, after all? I think the one who contributed so much deserves some form of reward, he grinned. Suddenly, Zhang stood up, a wide and grateful smile on his face. I'm honored, master, but all I did is prepare a party worthy of your. Sit down, you cow-brained moron. Izuku barked at him, prompting the man to sit back down in shame. I'm talking about Ace, obviously, he smiled at the girl, who looked more proud of herself than ever. Thank you, Ryu-kun. I was just doing what you told me to do, the blonde blushed, slightly hoping to fish for compliments. Nonsense, I know you've been keeping them in line while I was away, he said, grateful. Now, Zhang Lu, he suddenly addressed the other man, making him perk up. Can we afford to lose a dancer? The sudden question made Zhang pause. I'd say yes, we can. We'll likely even have to fire one or two of them because of the profits we lost lately, Zhang explained in confusion. Why were they suddenly talking about business? He wondered. Great, then here's your reward, Ace. Izuku talked to Himiko again, who tilted her head. Pick a dancer, anyone that catches your eye, and do whatever you want with her in one of the private rooms, he instructed, making the girl snicker, thinking it was a joke. However, from his tone alone, Zhang figured out this was no attempt at humor, and the blonde quickly realized it, too. Wait, really? She asked in shock, to which Izuku nodded in affirmation. I can do anything. Anything, he confirmed. You're awesome, Ryu-kun. Thank you. Himiko jumped high and wrapped her arms around his neck, tightly hugging him. The horned boy didn't protest, and she got off swiftly enough. I already saw a pretty cute one earlier, she exclaimed before running off to find whoever caught her eye. Huh, I didn't know she swung that way, Zhang commented silently. Let's just say, she swings all ways, Izuku interjected, to Zhang's utmost confusion. He had no idea what that meant. She'll need a mask, by the way. I don't want people finding out Ace's identity. I can take care of that. Then, Zhang nodded since it was an easy enough request. Will you need one, too? However, Izuku simply arched an eyebrow. The bull man's eyes wandered from up to down, looking over the boy's figure. Right, stupid question, a mask would likely never be enough, would it? For now, I want to have some fun. We can discuss business tomorrow, though, I hope you already sent someone to look for that bull we need, Izuku said, leaning back in a relaxed manner. I have. There's a slaughterhouse not too far from here, so I've contacted them to check if they have a bull they need to get rid of, Zhang replied. They also needed to give them quite a sum of money to get that bull and get them to keep quiet about this whole affair. Good. I want to improve our relations with the mafia as quickly as possible. Once it's done, this place will be much livelier. And bigger, Izuku exclaimed, greatly anticipating the income they would have. He grabbed a glass of cranberry margarita one of the men left a little earlier, and drank it all in one gulp before setting it down again. Come on, I want to see a nice show. He lightly slapped Zhang on the back and turned his attention to the dancer in front of them. The woman smiled when their eyes met, showing off more sensual moves. For some reason, a new idea struck him as he watched her. All the women here didn't bear any distinguishable features. No multiple arms, horns, or a tail. They looked completely human. The lack of heteromorphs slightly bothered him since he was pretty sure that the more variety they had, the more they would receive potential long-term clients. Moreover, he couldn't deny he had a small form of kinship with heteromorphs. He wasn't as different as they were, but he was still pretty big and bore horns on his head. However, before he could mention it to Zhang Lu, the bullman spoke. If I may, master. There's something I prepared just for you. You could call it a gift for besting me and becoming our leader, he declared, piquing the horned boy's curiosity. Oh, consider me intrigued, Izuku responded, which seemed to make Zhang quite satisfied. I'm happy to hear that. Come, girls, Zhang suddenly called out to someone behind him, gesturing for them to join. Izuku raised an eyebrow as he recognized them. These two were the women who were present the previous night. Just like that night, they only wore simple laced bikinis. The first woman's one was white, while the second one was yellow with flower prints. Now that they were both so close, he got a better look at the two. The first dancer was blonde with shoulder-length hair and fair skin. She was slender but shorter than the other. The second one had long black wavy hair and dark skin. She was curvier than her partner and had a more visible hourglass figure. Both had quite ample breasts. "Hey, boss," the blonde crooned, hands on her hips. "This one is Mio," Zhang gestured to the blonde, who smiled and waved. "And she's Isami," he pointed at the dark-skinned one. "Glad to meet you under better circumstances," Isami greeted him. "Nice to meet you, too." Izuku's eyes wandered all over their bodies. "I'm guessing you're introducing them for a reason." "I am. They're my best and most loyal workers, and I thought someone like you deserved the very best introduction to your new business," Zhang explained with a smile. "Are you trying to get in my good graces?" The horned boy chuckled. "Not at all, master. I simply want to make your takeover as enjoyable as possible. My meeting with you has humbled me tenfold." Zhang Lu bowed his head. "Defeat will do that to you," Izuku muttered before glancing at the two women. "Oh, well, I'd be stupid to refuse. Though, just so you know, every single person working here belongs to me from now on, including you," he told the bull man, who nodded in respect. "I am aware, but I still wish to give you this gift. Again, a reward for defeating me and learning my techniques so easily," Zhang retorted. "As long as we're on the same page." Izuku finished another of his drinks, then stood up. "The boss of this place must have room to relax, right? I still haven't gotten to see it, so show me the way," he ordered the Mio and Isami. "Right this way." Mio winked and walked away. Isami grabbed the dragon boy's hand and led him after the blonde. The dragon boy followed them out of the main space until they reached what was supposed to be his private bedroom. To his relief, his smell didn't pick up anything once they got inside, meaning this room was certainly clean. It was appealing to the eyes, too, since the bedroom looked luxurious as visible even in the dim light. The walls and the carpet were lavender, and the large bed was red. There were two long nightstands with multiple drawers, a few cupboards, and a chest in front of the bed. "Looks cozy," Izuku commented while looking around. "The room reserved for the boss, after all. It belonged to Zhang Lu, but it's only right it's yours now," Isami explained before gesturing to the cupboards. "We have different outfits here if you'd like to see us wear anything in particular," she stated. "Nah, what you're wearing is fine," the horned boy waved his hand before sitting at the edge of the bed. "Besides, I'd like to get back to the party after we're done," he said confidently. "Are you in a hurry? We're not good enough for you," Mio joked while looking through the drawers. After a few seconds, she pulled something out and fiddled with it, out of Izuku's view, who could only wonder what it was about. "It's ready." What is this?" the dragon boy inquired when Mio finally turned around and revealed the object, a syringe filled with a strange blue liquid. "Never heard of it before?" Mio asked, only for Izuku to shake his head. "A method of contraception that has been out for a couple of years. Pretty expensive, but so much better. You inject it into you, and it interferes with the reproductive organs," she explained. "Yup, gotta stab you right in the balls with it," Isami snickered, making the blonde roll her eyes and smile. "She's just joking. Gotta do it in the thighs." "In any case, that won't work on me," he said, and before they could ask why, he tapped on his chest. "A needle will never be able to pierce through my skin." That was the main reason he never got his shots, too. Truthfully, the doctors had special needles specifically designed to pierce through tough skins. They were harder, and bigger, and would have been quite painful to regular humans. However, Izuku never needed those either. Doctors had done several tests on him, which allowed them to confirm he wouldn't even need those shots. His body was tough down to its cellular level, and his antibodies were efficient enough to exterminate most viruses and negative bacteria that entered inside. He didn't speak out of arrogance when he said his body was invincible. His draconic blood simply made him superior to normal humans in every way. Mio clicked her tongue, seemingly annoyed, but ultimately shrugged in acceptance. "Guess we'll need two, then," she said before handing the syringe to Isami and preparing another for herself. The brunette didn't seem to mind as she slowly inserted the needle in her thigh, and injected herself with the liquid. Mio proceeded to do the same a few seconds later. "Now that's done, let's get to the fun," Isami smirked after they put the syringes on the nightstand. Smut start. To their credit, they didn't seem intimidated by his massive size as he towered over them even while sitting on the bed. Obviously, they were used to big guys. "Let's see what we're working with." Mio licked her lips before kneeling in front of him, followed by Isami while he pulled his pants and underwear down, revealing his manhood. The blonde widened her eyes as nearly all her vision was suddenly obstructed by the erect monster. "Oh, that's gonna hurt in a minute," she whispered, but despite her seemingly worrying remark, a wide and lustful smile stretched across her face. "Getting cold feet?" Isami asked, though her eyes were still stuck on the massive dick standing straight before her. "As if," Mio proudly smirked. It would take more than that to scare her. Moreover, she was aware of the benefits of being on the boss's good side. She also couldn't deny this would feel quite good, of course. Izuku remained silent, choosing to observe while they started to pleasure him. They didn't start slow, for sure, since they immediately used their mouths. Mio planted her lips on the tip of his cock while Isami ran her tongue across the underside of his shaft. They had plenty to share, after all. Both their lips were soft, and the way they moved their tongues just showed how experienced they were. The blonde sucked on his tip, which was already partly inside her mouth. It was warm, and since this was his first time, Izuku couldn't explain why that warmth gave him pleasure in the first place. Mio slowly pushed the until it was halfway inside and slightly sliding down her throat. She left some room for her partner, Isami, to enjoy herself by kissing the boy's cock over multiple spots, wrapping her lips around and suckling on them. The blonde moved her head up and down, using this as an opportunity to run and lick his length with every move. The brunette glanced enviously at the other woman, having wished to have a better taste of his cock, too. By now, his pre-cum already leaked down Mio's throat, filling her mouth with a sour taste, but most importantly, making her wet. Isami could only frown as the blonde suddenly pushed their boss's dick deeper in, leaving nearly no room for the brunette to pleasure the horned boy. She would have gladly gone for the balls, but she would be overshadowed by the other woman, who was moving her head faster and faster as seconds passed, seemingly easier the more she was used to the man's length and girth. Even a bulge could be visible in her throat every time the tip went far enough. Izuku held down a moan, having never experienced getting his dick in something so tight before. Her throat firmly squeezed his manhood, caressing it with every one of Mio's moves, which constantly sent shudders through his body. His crotch was getting hotter and hotter. When he was too overwhelmed by hormones before and couldn't fight anyone, he would just jerk off, so he imagined the feeling would have been the same, yet it somehow pleasured him tenfold. Was it because Mio was that good? Come on, you're hogging it all to yourself. Isami complained from the blonde's side, watching her vigorously blow that cock. Mio seemingly smirked with her eyes, enjoying Isami's envy. The brunette rolled her eyes, then grabbed the back of her partner's head and pushed her down, forcing her to take the whole cock down her throat. Mio widened her eyes in surprise but miraculously didn't gag. "All right, take it then," Isami grumbled, still pushing the blonde's head down to make her give the man a deep throat. "Don't worry. You can have some fun, too," Izuku suddenly spoke up before giving her his hand. Isami let go of the blonde's head, who bobbed it up and down more vigorously. It seemed the brunette's earlier action filled her with lust. She rarely had the opportunity to blow the manhood of someone that strong, after all. Getting it all inside her mouth and throat made her body so much warmer. "What are you planning?" Isami asked as she grabbed his hand, only to yelp when he suddenly pulled her up and made her lie on his lap. "This," he answered, taking off her bottoms and spreading her legs, and sliding a couple of fingers in. The brunette breathed out immediately as he somehow already found her most sensitive spot. The dragon villain could tell from that touch alone that her pussy would firmly hold his dick later. A part of him wanted to go straight to fucking, but he supposed they deserved some kind of reward, too. "Oh, Fuck, Isumi exclaimed as watched the man moving his fingers inside her as if exploring her most private place. You know how to use your hands, for such a big guy. She commented as he used his other hand to tear off her top, leaving her breasts bare. The woman couldn't help but moan as he suddenly pinched one of her nipples and squeezed her tits. I can see that, Izuku smirked. Isumi was already wet from those moves alone. He wasn't sure if he was that good or if she was just a slut, but Mio looked like she was aroused and he hadn't touched her yet because of her focus on his cock. He fingered the brunette for several minutes, making her moan in sync with the suction sounds Mio made as she deep-throated his dick. The more time passed, the more he wanted to replace those fingers with his manhood and finally get a taste of her pussy. However, the blonde seemed nearly glued to it, hoarding it for herself while Isumi slowly approached her climax. If he stopped now, they'd be disappointed both. Besides, his crotch was already burning hotter than earlier, notifying him he wouldn't last much longer either. Mio had been relentless and hadn't paused to breathe even once. I'm coming, Isumi announced at the last second, orgasming once Izuku moved a finger further inside her. Oh, the size of your fingers definitely helped, she muttered dreamily. You're not the only one reaching your limits here, he replied, a feeling of electricity running through him. The boy didn't even let Mio an opportunity to pull back before grabbing the back of her head and slamming her onto his cock until her nose was pressed against his pelvis. A second later, he shot his load down her throat, and while the blonde attempted to gulp it all down, drops of it spilled out of her mouth and rolled down her chin. Mwah, Mio voiced once she was finally allowed to pull her head back. She smirked and opened her mouth wide, showing there was none left inside. See, drank it all up like a nice girl, she panted. No surprises there, she didn't have much room to breathe all this time. No fair, Isumi complained, her breathing returning to normal. You'll have your turn next time, Mio winked her way mockingly. Now, who said it was over? Izuku questioned to their surprise. The two women realized with shock that his dick was still hard and standing straight, seemingly not satisfied yet. Oh, my, our boss has quite the endurance, Isumi remarked as she was suddenly thrown on her back. Before she could say anything, Mio took off her bikini, threw it over her shoulder, and right on the brunette's face. Hey, she complained while the blonde got on all fours beside her. You can look after them while the boss rails me from behind, Mio declared smugly, swaying her butt from side to side. What do you say, boss? Hey, you got to blow him, so it's only right he does me first. Isumi interjected stubbornly. The blonde chuckled, ready to argue. However, whatever she was about to say was cut off when the horned boy they were speaking of threw off his clothes, revealing completely his naked body. It was a lot of muscles, much to their pleasure. Oh, Izuku enjoyed watching two women fight over him, but it would never end if he didn't step in. Both of you will get your turn, don't worry, he smirked before grabbing Isumi's legs and spreading them apart to see her wet pussy. You first, he announced as he plunged his cock deep inside her. The woman moaned as Izuku's manhood hit the back of her womb, an electroshock going through her body. It was so big it stretched her pussy to its limits, and the shape of it was visible through a bulge on her stomach. Shit, that thing will split me in half. Still, fuck me, stud, she pleaded, her desire having built up ever since they entered the room. As you wish, Izuku happily declared, rocking his hips back and forth. He couldn't do it too hard so as not to hurt her, but he still held little mercy with every thrust, slamming his meat against her flesh. Any pain he was inflicting upon her seemed to only make it more pleasurable for her. Even if her pussy was tight, he could still tell she squeezed his dick with it, wanting to keep him inside her as long as possible. The warmth her flesh provided, coupled with the dripping love juice it expelled, made it feel like his cock would melt. Oh, it's so fucking good, Isumi moaned, curling her toes and grasping the bedsheets in ecstasy. The bed creaked with every thrust as the man plowed her pussy. She wasn't sure if it was the size or something else, but it felt incredible. Her crotch was already blazing hot as if about to burst. Is it the best fuck you've had? The dragon boy smugly asked, holding her ankles in a tighter grip. It's going to be, Isami responded between two moans. Where have you been before? It's that good. Now I'm really jealous. Mio grumbled as she watched her partner being railed by the massive cock. Ah, boss, I can't anymore, Isami shouted, overcome with pure pleasure. She released another moan, spraying out love juice all over his dick as she finally orgasmed again. The brunette was left breathless, yet was about to ask for more. Unfortunately, to her dismay, Izuku pulled his manhood out. Wait, you didn't come yet, she said, hoping for another round. Oh, I know, but as you can see, I have your friend to take care of, he gestured to the blonde, who was more than happy to shake her butt for him. Finally, hurry up, boss, and fuck me. And harder than you did with Isami. Until I can't walk anymore. Mio pleaded, much to the green-haired boy's amusement. If that's what you want, don't regret it. He grabbed her ass cheeks, sinking his fingers in her flesh before slamming his cock inside her pussy with no mercy. The blonde jerked her head back, letting out a pained cry as his dick pushed her womb all the way up and stretched her up. Fuck, you're not playing around, are you? She shouted with a wide smile, clenching her fists. That's what you wanted, isn't it? Izuku retorted before rocking back and forth even harder than he did with Isami, making Mio's ass ripple with every thrust. Oh, God, yes. The blonde responded. It seemed she had completely forgotten why she was doing this in the first place, since all she felt now was insatiable lust, just like Isami earlier. I love it, boss. Oh, moaned as Izuku moved back and forth, slamming his meat against her flesh. So good, Mio screamed. Mio continued to scream the word, good, as he pounded her. She couldn't care less if it made her look like a desperate whore, what mattered now was how good she felt. She could understand why Isami didn't want to let go of that dick when it was rammed into her. Izuku's cock throbbed, realizing he would reach an orgasm again, soon. I'm coming, Mio moaned, her pussy juice rolling down her thighs. Feeling his throbbing manhood, she had hoped he would finish inside her, especially since she bothered injecting herself with that contraceptive. Unfortunately, he pulled his dick out and quickly grabbed Isami by her head. Huh, the brunette voiced in confusion before her mouth was filled with his manhood, making her gag at the sudden action. Since you wanted it earlier. Take it, the horned boy declared, shooting his load down her throat and forcing her to swallow as much as she could, which she gladly did. The brunette took it all down her gullet, some of it overflowing until he was done, and released her head, letting her fall back. Smut end. Ah, I wanted a good cream pie, Mio complained, trying to push herself up, only to fall back on the bed. Her legs hurt. Isami panted, desperately trying to catch her breath as she fell on her back. I wanted it, too, but that wasn't too bad, she licked her lips, wiping off some of the semen that was left on it. Next time when I need to relieve some tension, Izuku grinned, proud of his work. The two women lay on the bed, sweating profusely and too tired to move. I hope we were to your liking, Mio muttered tiredly. Oh, you definitely were. I'll have quite a lot of fun at this place, Izuku chuckled while putting on his clothes. I'll let you clean everything up, he instructed. Taking over this place was sweet already, but having girls like them to use as toys was a nice bonus, too. They likely wouldn't be the only ones either. However, he had a party to go back to. He left the room without another word and returned to the strip club's hub, which was as lively as he had left it. The fact that it didn't even seem close to closing was good. It told him that this place had a lot of potential if they worked hard enough. Zhang Lu, give me some drinks, he immediately shouted the second he returned. The bull man, who was still in the seat he left him in, was seemingly occupied with a stripper dressed in lingerie and dancing over his lap. However, the second Izuku's voice reached his ears, the man perked up. Whatever you have. Right away, master, Zhang exclaimed before gesturing for a nearby man to go and bring more drinks. You heard him. Go and get him something good, he ordered, refusing to stand up as he held the stripper before him with a hand on her ass. Was your prize to your liking, master? He inquired once Izuku was close enough. Sure was. They were good, the horned boy nodded, much to the bull's relief. I'm happy you were pleased. As the boss here, you can take any of our workers anytime you want, Zhang stated. Is that what you did? Izuku asked curiously, though he already expected the answer. Indeed, never really had to force them either. Most of them come to work here because they have little choice. Either they desperately need the money or they've always loved showing their bodies or selling them. The bull man chuckled as he ran his hand across the woman's hips, which she didn't seem to mind. Obviously, a job like that's dangerous, so they have to be careful. They want good protection, and the wild dogs and I could offer it to them. They'd open their legs for me to gain my favor. Now, you showed you were even stronger than me. Beat my ass, he snorted, remembering that night. They'll flock around you soon enough. Think you can handle it? Easily. Though, they better not expect a fucking every day. We'll have a lot of work to do, soon, Izuku responded, reminding Zhang of their current task. Indeed we do, Zhang looked down. Their first order of business was the Chinese mafia, and he was still concerned about the plan. He hoped it would work. He would rather avoid an all-out war with them. He'd want nothing more than to destroy them to the point they get as weak and forgotten as the Yakuza, but he was aware it would have been a difficult task for him alone. With his leader, though, he had wanted to make those bastards pay for what they did even before this whole affair, and when he was about to abandon the idea of revenge, they had to mess with his business. For now, let's enjoy ourselves. We can talk about it once this party's over. Izuku slapped the bull man on his back, having noticed the way he lost himself in his thoughts. Ace still isn't back yet. Not from what I've seen. She must be having the time of her life, Zhang whistled. Guess who? Someone suddenly jumped on Izuku's back and covered his eyes with their hands. You do know I can recognize your voice and your smell, right? The horned man asked. Gross. I showered yesterday, you know. Himiko asked offendedly, taking her hands off him and jumping off his back. You're done, then? Izuku inquired while looking the girl over. Her hands were bloody, but the most disturbing part was the blood all around her mouth, some even on her lips. It didn't seem there was any on her clothes, though. Yup, it was fun, Himiko exclaimed happily, putting her hands on her cheeks and smiling wide. She was so cute. She gushed over the woman she likely already killed. Of course, this caused the woman dancing over Zhang to slightly quiver in fear. Nevertheless, with a seemingly steeled resolve, she put her trembling to a stop, opting to please Zhang instead in the hopes of not ending up in the blonde's hands. I bet, Izuku replied nonchalantly. He was about to end this conversation to enjoy one of the whiskeys the waiter brought. However, he was stopped when a lightweight suddenly jumped on his lap. What are you doing? He asked Himiko Toga, who had her arms wrapped around him and rested her cheek against his chest. Hugging you, silly. Thank you for the gift, she muttered, hiding her face in his chest. Nevertheless, he had an idea of what her expression looked like, thanks to the small tears rolling down her cheeks. Let's just have fun, Izuku simply spoke, knowing better than to bring it up. Fortunately, they had quite some fun. They drank, but not to the point of getting drunk, and even played pool. Since neither Himiko nor Izuku knew how to play, though, Zhonglu utterly destroyed them in every game. To call it a humiliation would have been an understatement. Still, while they played, something Izuku hadn't thought about yet was brought up. I can't believe I lost again. Himiko whined and slumped against the pool table. Grr, Izuku growled with clenched teeth. He was this close to breaking the pool cue in half out of anger. Hey, too easy. Zhonglu grinned in pride. Raw, just kick his ass, Ryu-kun. Himiko shouted, pumping up her fists. Oh, Izuku wanted to, but this would make him a sore loser. The bull man did perk up at the blonde's remark, though. That reminds me, is Ryu your real name? Why do you want to know? Izuku answered with a question. If it's not, then I was wondering if it was your villain name, Zhang explained. Oh, right, I forgot all about that. Never thought of getting a villain name, Himiko commented. Izuku placed a hand on his chin. Now that he thought about it, he never even considered a villain name before. He was focused on other things. Do you have one, Zhang? I do, but I rarely use it since I never go out, he shrugged. I'm Minotaurus, he pointed at himself with his thumb, only to receive deadpan stares. I didn't pick it, okay, he exclaimed offendedly. In any case, I wonder what name would fit me best, Himiko asked herself before glancing at Izuku's way. The blonde blushed and smiled wide. I kinda like Ace, she said, showing a toothy grin. Of course, she loved the name he picked out for her. Couldn't it be considered his first gift? What about you, Ryu? She asked. From the looks of it, he soon wouldn't even need to use that codename. Besides, Zhang would learn Izuku's true identity at some point for sure. Yeah, I've been thinking. I was born strong, he looked at his right palm, remembering the training he had with his father. But I still trained every day to get stronger and stronger. It was never enough. When my body seemingly couldn't get any stronger, I trained my mind. This time, he remembered the hours he spent studying, doing homework with his mother, analyzing every fight he witnessed outside or on the TV, and the heroes he watched, which he also admired in a few aspects. It was all so I could become invincible. It was all so I could become one above all and conquer anything in my way. To rule, he clenched his fist. Zhang widened his eyes as he watched the man openly declare a glimpse of his goals. I told you, didn't I, Ace? I will change the world, and only the strongest can accomplish that, he turned his head to the blonde. You did, and I believed you since the moment you said it, Himiko smiled warmly, her heart beating faster than ever. I know what name I will take, Izuku confidently stated. Somewhere in the city of Nagoya, a man took a puff of his cigar before placing it back in the ashtray. Sitting behind a desk in a nicely furnished room, he read a newspaper while classical music played softly in the background. He wore a suit and tie, which did not conceal the gills on his neck, and his slick gray hair added to his distinguished appearance. He was none other than Lei Shui, leader of the Chinese mafia. Just as he was about to turn the page, someone knocked on his door. Come in, he said in a gruff voice. We have received a package, father, someone said. Lei Shui raised his head to see one of his men coming in, and holding a large package. Seems you already know what it is, Lei Shui remarked, seeing the man's worried expression. We opened it. There was a letter with it, he replied before putting the package on the father's desk and opening it. Lei Shui widened his eyes in surprise. This was a bull's head. Its eyes were wide open and its tongue hung out of its mouth. Wait, he saw that head somewhere, didn't he? Zhang Lu, Lei Shui voiced in shock. His man nodded before holding the letter that came with it. Some killed him and took over his group. Changed the gang's name to Beastlord's Legion. Apparently, this is a peace offering. They want to meet you, his man explained. Interesting, I didn't think someone would ever take out Zhang Lu, Lei commented. Suddenly, he chuckled and stubbed out his cigar on the bull's forehead. Serves that bastard right. What's the name of the one who did this? He calls himself Supreme Ruler. How arrogant, Lei Shui remarked before leaning back in his chair. All right, send a reply back. I'd love to meet this How, the man grinned. To be continued. I hope you enjoyed this story. Also remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.